Americas. It's a re-examination show featuring Zillzone. Zillzone, why don't you tell us what's coming up on August 5th?
What's coming up on August 5th is a friendly debate between me and Reexamination on Molinism versus Reformed monergism, more or less.
Yeah, monergism. I call it compatibilism because I don't like, I believe that free will and predestination are compatible, that they don't necessarily cancel out or conflict one with another. I think our choices and the consequences of our choices are very real, and we are held responsible as such. And you would agree with that, but you take it from the Molinist side, which has to do more with what do you call it? Hey, certainty exists. Welcome, welcome. You know what? Certainty. Are you on Discord? Certainty exists. Do you have a Discord somewhere? Can you post that in the chat? Or I don't think you have a real good way of reaching out. Kelly, how you doing? All right. So today we're going to be going over an implementation of the moral argument that I have been working on, and it has to do with knowledge. And ought we believe that which is true? Ought we reject that which is false? That's the question that I like to get to. And we're just going to hop in. This was on Teriak's show, by the way. And you can find this live stream on my channel, and you can also find it on Teriak. Like and subscribe to Teriak's stuff. He has a very entertaining setup.
No, Shiva, I have to interject. You
have to.
Well, just so you know, Teriak is the guy on the far left on the way down. He's the host of the show. Shiva is the one with the idol figurine in the top right. And I respect him. I disagree with him a lot, but I respect him very much and his intellectual prowess. And then there's Charles Darwin, who's the guy who must interject and must interrupt.
Before you do so, Charles.
You said 29 degrees.
Machiwa, Reggie. Machiwa.
That's Jim Bob, by the way.
Machiwa Rex, welcome back.
Hey, back in none too soon. Shiva, Charles, good to see you.
Hey, Shiva.
That's re-examination.
No. Shiva said.
I think he said that because he doesn't like Rex, but he's used Rex before. I don't understand. I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Correction. Someone said 29 degrees Celsius versus 30 degrees Celsius. No, yeah. It's like fucking 1 degree fucking either side of the same fucking thing. Okay.
So that's what I was, Charles. Yeah. I was expanding on that. So we have an absolute zero, and like is that 0 Kelvin? Like I don't know what it is Kelvin, but
absolute zero is 203 degrees Celsius, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong.
230 degrees Celsius is not absolute zero.
No, correction. Minus.
Well, Charles, Jack hits us with the.
Oh my goodness!
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
And that part is true. We don't care. So we're going to spin the wheel.
He says spin that wheel, so we got to spin that wheel, unfortunately. I'm pretty sure what you were going to say, Charles, was very enlightening, though, to be fair. You know what I'm saying? Also, have a good one, Jack. If determinism is true and all our actions are caused by prior events, can we still be morally responsible for what we do?
And both Zillzone and I agree, yes, for different reasons.
Yeah.
I have a feeling this is going to get interesting with Rex and Shiva on panel. Go ahead, gentlemen.
So,
is determinism true? We're granting that it is true in this case, if it is true.
In this case. Well, it depends on your model of determinism. If you have a material determinism, I think it would necessarily be true that you are not a moral agent, and therefore responsibility would be moot as an idea altogether, because your brain would just be downstream from the laws of physics rippling from the Big Bang and throughout redshift and all the things in between. You're just a windsock in space and time, just reacting to the ripples across the space-time continuum. But as far as Christianity goes,
I can't tell if you're nodding or bopping your head, Zillzone. You're listening to
I'm nodding as I'm listening to you. I'm nodding.
I would say because there is a differentiation, not only a spiritual and a physical side of the individual person, but there's also primary and secondary causation. You can have decreed ends, which will inevitably happen, while also interacting within a free will space of your own choices that actually reflect your individual wants and desires.
Now, I spat that out at rapid speed, and most people aren't going to know what that means. So, in my previous stream, back from like 5 minutes ago, I talked about primary and secondary causation. Primary causation being the decree of God before time that would determine what would happen, and secondary causation being the free will of the creatures acting upon their desires and priorities to carry out that decreed will of God for what would happen. And so determinism is usually the idea that everything is fatalistic and you don't have to worry about what you do because outcomes are just what they are. But outcomes do come by means, and means include the things that people do. So, yeah, the both exist.
Okay, another point I'd like to make is, well, I agreed with you earlier that we agree on this, but I don't know if I actually agree that determinism is true. I don't think I would go far to say that.
Well, I don't use the term determinism. I would call it predestination. Kind of like how there's a difference between the free grace, right, as a term, and then and then like perseverance of the saints, because perseverance of the saints has to do with us persevering over temptation and sin as well by the power of God, and not just like, oh, I believed in God for 5 minutes and that's got my ticket punched, so I'm going to heaven.
Well, real quick, give us the distinction between determinism and predestination.
Yeah, so are we doing the debate now?
No. We should do that on the 5th. It's coming up.
Okay.
We'll do that later.
Yeah, because that's the risk of you and I doing this discussion is it's gonna be more focused.
Okay.
In that way. But yeah, I would say determinism is fatalistic, whereas predestination has to do with our faith that God will bring about all things to His glory and our good. Romans 8. So
I also accept.
I'm excited for our debate.
Do what you will, but you cannot will what you will, because what you will is corresponding to the nature that you already have in you. Whether that be
by the way, when I say what you will is corresponding to your nature, I'm talking about whether or not you've been born again in Christ, that the Holy Spirit has changed you. If the Holy Spirit has not changed you, then your will is going to be against God. If your Holy Spirit has changed you, your will is going to be for God. I might even do a separate stream even after this stream, because I shared with you what one guy said about that, and that I think that deserves its own stream, but it doesn't deserve its own debate.
Yeah. All right.
Be predilected to one goal ultimately of self, or another goal of glorification of God. But if you have a fallen flesh, the person can have a split in terms of not an equal split, but at least a difference in the will that they have inherited on their physical side, the fallen flesh that has a corruption to it, and then of their spiritual side, which, if renewed in Christ, would be towards God and His will.
Right,
so she before I know you disagree.
Was that you saying whoa?
Yeah, I was just, because of the comment, I was looking for an opportunity. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That means
that's fine.
No, I don't necessarily disagree. I just don't understand what you're talking about.
That's fine. I admit that I am sometimes way too in the weeds, and I try to split the difference between keeping it brief and making it clear, and I think I sacrifice clarity all the time, and so that's my fault. But Shiva, I would love to hear your thoughts before you give any challenges to mine.
Yeah, part of it is just having good friends who will tell you the truth. You cannot do well in life, and you cannot have any right thoughts about anything unless you have friends who are willing to tell you uncomfortable truths about yourself. And you can't also bar the door to uncomfortable truths about yourself if you want to get anywhere in life.
Right. What the heck? We act like we're not works in progress. Like, that's just pride. That's just garbage. You can't be like, guys, I'm perfect. Okay, get out of here with that.
Never seen anything like it before.
Dude,
Sure.
dude, use small words because I'm retarded. So even though I don't understand what the fuck you were talking about,
I do mostly.
are we fucking looking after a fucking like a fucking Texan fucking Texas fucking thing like use a cap fucking
Okay.
bring it fucking down in fucking small words in simple fucking terms that simple people like me can understand. Jesus
Okay, do you have
Christ,
20
dude.
minutes? You have 20 minutes?
Charles
Right.
Charles starts to sweat when you use words over 4 letters long.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, if determinism is true, and all our actions are caused by prior events, can we still be morally responsible for what we do? It depends on what you mean by morally responsible, or
Right. So Shiva, in many of our conversations, at least lately, has been a moral nihilist. He has taken the position that the even the idea of thinking about morality as a real category is just void in of itself. I think I'm doing it justice. Let me actually double check on that for the definition of moral nihilism.
Well, the suffix nihilism entails nothing matters. There's no value in choices, right?
Moral nihilism is the meta-ethical view that nothing is inherently right or wrong. It argues that objective moral facts do not exist in the universe and that ethical principles are merely human inventions rather than universal truths, which I disagree with fundamentally, obviously.
Well, they're honest atheists.
Honest
the ones,
atheists?
right? The ones vying for actual objective morality are lying. Objective ethics.
morals. So if you mean
I
like a
said
kind of normative standard of behavior, and then you transgress that standard in some way, then yes, I think you can be held responsible for what you do, even if actions are caused by prior events.
Very interesting. So I think you and I have a very interesting convergence. That
Because like conditioning is a thing, right? So let's say like and part of conditioning is punishment and the threats thereof. And I think any parent will tell you that if you threaten a punishment for a given action and then you fail to deliver on that punishment, then that sends a message to the child that there are no consequences for their actions, right?
Mhm.
And like, I mean,
can you pause it?
Yeah, Zill, why don't you monologue while I get some food in me? Because you probably ate. I have not. I came home after church
I
and
did.
I saw Seth Andrews and Matt Dillahunty. I'm like, I got to get 2 birds with 1 stone, man. So I'm going to get some food. You entertain
Yep.
the people with your
I got you,
amazing
man.
monologuing skills.
Yep, let's go. All right, guys. So React sent me this video earlier, and I'm not going to spoil it or anything, but it was very interesting to listen to. And this latest point from this guy is, oh yeah, he brought up parents. As soon as he brought up parents, he's already made it subjective to his own parental morals. He's immediately turned his entire argument into subjectivity, because not all parents think the same thing is good for their child. Some parents, like me, an objective Viking, I think kids should learn how to swim when they're 1 year old. I just toss them over, and if they make it, they make it. If they don't, they don't. The strong survive. Only the strongest survive the objective Vikings. Okay, and you can't say that my parenting is bad, because you're, Mr. Shiva, you're making the argument that the parents know what's good for the kids, right? So if I think the kids go overboard to see if they sink or swim, you got to say that's just as legit as your parenting skills. That's why I'm an objective Viking. Okay? And I make you guys look silly, right? Me and my objective Viking friends with our social contract, we all agree on a social contract that we don't care about human life, even amongst our youngins. They gotta fight to survive from the get-go. They have a baby in the hull of the ship. We toss the baby overboard, and if it makes it back up on the deck, we keep it. And that's just how we've done it for generations and generations of the objective Vikings, guys. And that my parenting skills are actually really, I think they're cool, guys. And in fact, you think they're cool, Shiva. Because you think, oh, you think your parenting skills are cool? You think you have the objective morals that parents should have for their children? Are you so pompous to assume something like that? You wouldn't dare do that, would you? You wouldn't dare assume that all parents know how to take care of their children, would you? Just from magic? What's the name of the particle that gives parents the knowledge for how to raise their children, Shiva? Is this a scientific particle we can reproduce in a lab? Can we do this experiment, Shiva? Yeah, what do we do? Just listen to the parents, right? Because all the parents are going to agree with you, right? Not me. Not me, sucker. Objective Vikings. We don't play games, and we're in Greenland right now. We're making our way across the world, and we're going to start conquering other nations next. Me and my friends, with our social contract to not give a dang. And you think it's moral, you objective moralists, social contract. You guys think everyone's going to converge on your idea of morality. That's your own preemptive garbage. That's your own presupposition, guys. You really think that society is going to agree on your own morals, and you think that's just going to converge out of nowhere. You have nothing to point to for your morals. Aside from God. God is the best explanation for the universe, why we're here, how we got here. It's such a better explanation than the void producing our universe by unknown means. Okay? It just sounds very silly to me. And I just think that God is the creator who revealed himself to us through the Bible is a much more plausible explanation for all of this than just the void just spit us out due to atheist woo-woo magic. Okay? Like, you guys really need to stop being silly, okay? And you know what?
Have you taught these suckers how to stop being silly?
Exactly, Rex. I was just gonna pass it back to you, bro. You got this.
All right. We continue.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think it's perfectly fine to, like, even if determinism is true, because if determinism is false and our actions aren't caused, like, you could ask the question, if determinism is false and all our actions are random, which is the negative of causation, right? And all our actions are random, can we still be morally responsible for what we do? Right? And like on a pragmatic level, it seems to me that the answer has to be yes.
So you'd say in all cases, responsibility would exist with rational moral agents.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Simple question. Who determined anything?
I don't think determinism implies an agent.
Well, someone had to, because if there's determinism, then someone thinks that there is a person who said, "Oh, I think this is how things work."
That is the natural understanding of what a determination is, isn't it? There has to be a conscious parameter being set by a conscious person. But
Yeah, if we're
atheists
asking,
will not allow for that.
right, we're talking about the source of actions, the agent source of or the cause of things. And you brought the chain back to the Big Bang, and you're right about that. Because if everything's just a machine, it's just a machine from the Big Bang, and then everything is meaningless.
Yeah, in the previous stream, there was a guy in the comments in the chat, and he was saying that, all atheism is lack of belief in God. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but on average, atheists are evolutionists. And he's like, well, you made the tie from atheism to evolution and all that kind of stuff, and that's just there's no tie there. It's like, on average, atheists believe in evolution. Even
Yeah,
if
like
there
come
weren't-
on, don't they're
Like,
trying to divert. They're trying.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so what? What kind of atheist are you? Are you a spiritual one? Like, you don't know what atheism is. Okay, can you just get off the
Yeah.
pogo stick and just
Yeah.
say something? You know,
Right.
But yeah, so
Dodging. They're dodging. They're scared.
right.
It's
So
fine.
okay,
They're
then
scared.
then the question would be, in that case, do you believe in the spiritual realm? And he wouldn't answer if he believed in the spiritual realm, because
He didn't
that
like
would
it.
mean that you would have a mechanism by which to overcome natural laws being the only thing making your brain do anything.
Ooh, he doesn't like thinking about consciousness. Isn't that
No.
interesting?
No,
What
he
if-
just wants to tell me I don't know what atheism is, which I'm pretty sure I know what atheism is, even if you have an atheism that includes a spiritual realm and doesn't include evolution somehow. I mean, I guess if you want to believe that there was no evolution and the species that are here just always were here, I'd like to see you actually establish how that works. But anyway, that's a whole other ball of
Yeah.
wax.
So who said what?
No, that's not what determinism is.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, because that's
Yeah.
part of the reason why I reject determinism, because I usually associate determinism with a non-theistic model of physics being unfolding into consequences that are merely
Materially based, right?
descriptions and not prescriptions in any sense. Okay, what I mean by that is, if a rock bumps into another rock, that's not a moral offense. But if a man punches another man, that's a moral offense, because there is a standard by which you can judge that the man has value, the man's well-being has value. You have responsibility to respect it. There are moral laws that correspond to that, and
What
the
if I
punishment
name the
of those
rock?
offenses is.
What if you name the rock? What are you
Yeah,
gonna name the rock?
then I'm gonna
Punchy?
be offended if you bump into my rock, if I give him a name, if his name's Charles.
Well, that'd be property rights.
Oh, okay, and there you go. Okay. Okay. Good stuff. Got him.
Different than obviously the offense and the breaking of that moral law itself. So determinism, it could be just like I said when we started.
What's a moral law?
Yeah, so a moral law would be that which corresponds to our given purpose, and the given purpose would be given by God. So I'll give you an example of a moral law. Shiva, would you agree that we ought to believe and adhere to what is true, and we ought to reject what is false and not
That is the key question I give, and the new argument here is: should we accept what is true? Ought we accept what is true, and reject that which is false? Now, some people have understood that to mean ought we accept things the way they are, which is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if something is true, ought we believe it's true and live accordingly? Is there any prescriptivity to it? And so far, I've wondered what kind of answers I've gotten, and Shiva is among the more intelligent atheists that I've ever encountered here in the YouTube debate space. And so I wanted to put it to the test, because I've tested people who aren't quite as practiced as Shiva.
No.
not believe it. You don't believe that.
No. Well, I mean, it's sort of
I back that up just so everybody knows exactly what happened.
So a moral law would be that which corresponds to our given purpose, and the given purpose would be given by God. So I'll give you an example of moral law. Shiva, would you agree that we ought to believe and adhere to what is true, and we ought to reject what is false and not believe what? You don't believe that.
No. Well, I mean, it sort of
depends.
Really? Depends.
So he's going to go into a goal-based thing, but that is the same answer that Matt Dillahunty gave very quickly. Robin, more intelligent than you, Robin. I haven't actually seen you in action. If you want to send me a DM in Discord of one of your debates, then I can make that determination. But Shiva is a challenge for most Christians. and I can see why he's very rhetorically effective. He's got this Jeremy Irons, Alan Rickman kind of hybrid British accent, which already makes you sound smarter than 10,000% of the rest of humanity. He's got a very good vocabulary, and he's really good at parsing questions, which can be very intimidating to a lot of people. But yeah, I'm glad you were not personally offended that I called another atheist smart. Moving on.
Yeah.
Okay.
If your
let's talk about the cases where
if your
Okay.
concern is with the truth, then yes, you ought to adhere to that, right? Because
Right.
otherwise you're going to be failing in achieving whatever truth-based objective it is that you're striving for.
should I believe that the truth is better than lies?
Should you believe that the truth is better than lies?
Yeah.
Robin, I'm just gonna need some
6-7.
evidence. I'm just gonna need some evidence, Robin. Just don't you love the pursuit of evidence? I have experience with Shiva. I have no experience with how you debate and how you go back and forth. So, that's why I said send me a DM of one of your debates.
Not necessarily.
Okay. So what makes any worldview? Let me ask you this: if
So wait.
somebody
Let me
asked-
give you an
no, 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 no.
example.
All
Let me
right.
give
All
you an
right.
example.
All right.
Let's say you're in Second World War, Nazi Germany, and you've got Jews hiding in your house,
Uh-huh.
and then the Nazis turn up at your door.
Yeah.
Is the truth better than a lie?
Okay, so here's the equivocation here. The truth is still better than a lie, and I get to this later because the truth is you ought not be persecuting the Jewish people. You ought not be trying to exterminate them. But the question he's really asking is, in that particular instance, should you tell the truth? Are you morally obligated to tell the truth? Or does the prescriptivity of truth fail here because you ought to tell a lie in order to make the Nazis go away? Right?
Yes.
So, go ahead, Zill.
Yeah, I like to add to that. My way of seeing that is the truth is a base set, unchangeable. And then if you add complexity on top of that, it does not change the base layer. So what they want to do to obfuscate the situation is add a bunch of complexity and say, oh, look, the truth is muddied. No, you've added complexity to the baseline, and you have not changed that truth exists. Okay?
We got Robin Webster with manifesting man envy here. I don't know what to say. It's I didn't do it. But yeah, so there's the base set part, but to directly answer the question about what would I do if I were not influenced by such a fear of what the Yahtzees would do to me and the people I'm trying to hide and then lie. If I were not influenced by that, I would try to find every way to not answer the question of whether or not I were hiding Jews in my house. And the question to me is not, do I succeed or fail in fooling them, with a lie, or anything like that, or do I succeed or fail in terms of giving red herrings to distract them by not answering their question? The question at mind would be, do I succeed or fail to maintain my integrity before I die? That's the ultimate thing.
Because God searches the hearts. God searches the hearts.
Yeah. And so while I understand, I totally get people lying, I can even say that it makes sense strategically to do that for that certain end. I still don't believe that lies become good on a situation-based ethic. So, Robin, it's not that I don't get that people would have the humor. It's just, do I know you have that kind of humor or not? Because based on text, I can't tell. I can't tell what's teasing and what's not. That's all.
I would say that in that case, I don't know what I would do. I still believe that lying would be immoral in that case. So I'm going to remain.
But with the truth, but that's not the question. The question isn't would.
Part of that is the question because, for example, some people believe that if you and your family are starving, then you ought to steal bread to give it to your family. But I still say that stealing, even in that case, is immoral. Even if it's mitigated, it doesn't become moral by virtue of your need, even by virtue of your need. So it is still their stuff. It is still their food that you're taking, even if you and your kids are starving. And it didn't change hands of belonging to somebody else just because you had a need for something like that. So
Wasn't
He-
there
he-
there was a determination for those who stole food due to need in the repayment? Wasn't it? There was a leniency there, wasn't there, in the Old Testament? Do you know what I'm talking about?
yeah, you're talking about, I think, a passage in Proverbs or Ecclesiastes that talks about no one hates a man if he steals bread, if he's hungry, but if he is caught, he will pay sevenfold or something like that.
Something, yeah, sevenfold. So, I guess my point is, what is my point? Some sins are worse than others. Is that it?
Yeah, well, some
I
sins are
guess.
worse than others. That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so Proverbs 6, we're going to go to verse 30 and 31. People do not despise a thief if he steals to satisfy his appetite when he is hungry, but if he is caught, he will pay sevenfold. He will give all the goods of his house.
Yeah, I think that's really lenient. That's like God being like, look, it's hard. Look, it's gonna be a risk, and no one's really gonna be mad. I don't know. What do you think about it?
I think it's still sin, even if it's mitigated in terms of severity by need.
Yeah. Yeah.
It becomes what I call understandable, but that doesn't make it morally acceptable. Just
Oh,
because
yeah,
there's
yeah.
even like a threat to your life doesn't become more. I mean, for example, like David played as if he was crazy to avoid like being turned over to Saul by another king when he was captured by another kingdom. But yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Robin Webster has determined that she and Maud are the only two that matter. I'm still waiting for Maud and Zillzone to make the Maudzilla podcast. I mean, it's like missed opportunity.
Oh,
right
let's
there.
go. We might. We could. I
Maudzilla.
don't know. That is right there. Let's go.
He would be the person who
question
would
is,
go
hang on,
along.
Charles.
He would be
Hang on,
the
Charles.
person who would
The,
go and do
the
what.
question, the
Charles, I'm going to
question
put you
is-
beside the rainbow, okay? Let Rex and Shiva have this back. Play with the rainbow,
Oh,
okay?
all right, yep,
Push
cool.
with the rainbow.
No worries.
the question is, in that instance, when you have Jews hiding in your house, and you know that if you tell the truth, those Jews are going to be carted off to a concentration camp and gassed. In that instance, would the truth be better than a lie? Not is a lie immoral, right?
Yeah, well, I think in that particular instance, I could just evade giving an answer, so it wouldn't be a true
No,
dichotomy
you
in that
could-
situation.
No. I don't think that's how the Nazis worked.
I'm not reliant upon how the Nazis worked in order to do what the right thing is. So it's not. You are confusing a goal-based ought with a moral ought. The moral
No.
ought dictates regardless of situations. Goal-based is just whatever I make up in my mind and I want to adhere to.
He's trying to force you into the decision. He's trying to say, gun to your head, yes or no. He's
Yeah, but it's not a true
he's trying
dichotomy.
Well, that's the issue you would raise then. Yeah.
Like,
You never read The Hiding Place then.
Well, maybe.
But in The Hiding Place,
But is-
I'll give you an
is,
example. So in The Hiding Place,
Mhm.
Corrie ten Boom, when the Nazis came to her door, they
Mhm.
had a place underneath the table, a compartment where the Jews were hidden. And he said, "Yeah."
Mhm.
She said, "Yes, they are under the table." When the Nazis came, and they went and looked under the curtain of the table, and then they were not there immediately under the table, and then so they laughed and went, even though
Right.
she told them the truth in a limited sense,
Right.
sure, but the truth was given.
Excellent.
And I
And,
think-
that was very quick-witted of her. But what if
Can
you're
you
not
pause it for a
quick-witted?
sec?
I
Oh,
don't even
yep.
I don't even know that she had the intent of
Oop,
not
hold on.
telling. So, for example,
Go ahead.
Was there another situation in the Old Testament where somebody lied during a wartime?
Rahab.
Like,
So
Rahab.
in the book of Joshua, when Israel came to take the promised land after Moses died, they went to Jericho, and Rahab was the person who put the red thread in her window so that they would signify something. I forgot what it was, whether they were the spies could stay there or whatever. And she lied to the soldiers, but that again, there's no, just because something happened in the Bible doesn't make it a description of a moral thing, because you have to already presuppose that this is like a fictional book and Rahab is a protagonist, and not that Rahab was, by the way, who was a prostitute, an already sinful person who used sinful means in order to get good ends. But we know from Romans 6 that, or is it Romans 3, where it says, "Let us not do evil so that good may come." I think that's Romans 3:8.
Right.
So-
Paul was like, don't let us keep doing sin so grace may abound. That's ridiculous. That's not practical, right?
Well, it's evil. He says their
Yeah.
condemnation is just.
Right. So we live in grace, we enjoy grace, but we don't abuse it, right? That's kind of what it is.
Yeah, but it's also, don't justify the bad things you do because you think that, like, something good's going to come out of it.
Well, yeah.
Christians are not outcome-based people. We are ethics-based people. We have rules that we're answerful. We are answering to. Missing Mod says everyone is sinful. That is correct. When I go over now, Mod, when I go over the passages that make you particularly uncomfortable, I am only claiming what the Bible claims, which is those particular sins that are constant, unrepented lifestyles in Galatians 5:18 through 21, 1 Corinthians 6:9 through 11, and Revelation 21:8. Those, and there's one, I think, in 1 Timothy as well, but those are specifically enumerated. Those are a notch up. Not all sins, right, are those lifestyles that will send you to hell. But those are. I think it's pretty defensible and not unreasonable at all. Now,
Well,
this is okay, Zil. This is what I've been dealing with. If I list out these verses that say if you are in this lifestyle, you'll go to hell, like, people think that I'm claiming I don't sin anymore, and that is like a total straw man. It's just not fair.
okay. Well,
Anyway,
you can talk about that with Mod, and
all right. I won't put you in the middle.
You aired it out just then.
Monkey in the middle. Monkey in the middle.
Yeah.
I don't think she
Lord
had the
help me.
intent of misleading necessarily, but in the
Right.
case of
Oh, well, then the consequence is kind of irrelevant to the question, right? Because
No,
like if she didn't intend to deceive the Nazis, and
Mod, it's true, all sin sends you to hell, but some lifestyles bar you from heaven, which is the difference. Because everybody has sinned and earned hell. But for those who are truly repentant, they're not doing those things listed in those passages as a lifestyle. Now you're an ape. Okay.
So
I don't talk to
Well,
apes.
hold on. Okay. Now, everybody understand there are Christians who are more. It's like grace versus legal.
It's not legalism, dude.
Well, no. Well, that's fine. I don't know. Well, you might be put in that category. I don't know. Maybe is
All right.
that what's
Then
going on?
Okay. Was Paul a legalist?
Probably. I don't. No. He preached great.
This is not looking
abounding
good for you
grace.
for our debate coming up. If you're saying Paul was probably a legalist, that's not going to bode well for you.
No. Okay. No. I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about it. But no, there is that spectrum, anyways. It was my point.
Okay. Know ye not that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of God? Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor adulterers, nor idolaters, nor effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind, nor thieves, nor covetous, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor extortioners shall inherit the kingdom of God. And such were some of you, but ye are washed, ye are sanctified, but ye are justified in the name of the Lord Jesus and by the Spirit of God. Operative word being were. Such were some of you, past tense.
Right. So we would be regenerate with the Holy Spirit working in us. And therefore we would be working to not be living in those.
And then we can go, because this just comes up every single time, and I keep getting told opinions I don't actually have, so I'm just going to keep bringing up these passages. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. And they that are Christ's have crucified the flesh with affections and lusts. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not be desirous of vainglory, provoking one another, envying one another. So those are two of the passages, but I'll just leave it there.
And her intent was actually to give up.
Okay, can you pause it for a sec? So, all right. So some might say, and it seems Maud is saying, then who can get to heaven? And there's a passage, well, in what is Jesus said it right, with God all things are possible. After he said the camel through the eye of the needle, they said, then who can get into heaven? He said, with man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. So my point is, if people have struggles with things, they shouldn't be struggling too bad with these things, but
so we can make the two passages harmonize.
Bad.
Here's how we can, well, they are especially bad because they will bar you from heaven, but those are specific ones, not general. But every time I have this talk with Maud, she makes it as general as possible and say, well, you say we're all going to hell, or you're saying you're perfect. And it's like, those are both misrepresentations. I'm saying exactly what those passages are saying. Those specific sins, if lived out, will bar you from heaven. And that's not a self-righteousness thing, because you would have no righteousness. I have no righteousness. We have to be born again, right? Because otherwise we're all going to be doing any number of those things, right? But if we're born of the Spirit, we're made new creatures. And as Hebrews 12 teaches, if we are really Christ's, we will be disciplined in those instances and brought back to the path.
At varying levels.
Yeah. She says, I'll stop. Sorry, just move on. You're wrong, though. Well, okay, Maud, you're going to make me do this. Hold on a second.
Okay, well, I think we covered the difference. Let's see. How can we solve this?
Okay, here's the solution. When Christ saves you, you're born again. People who are born again, who have a new nature, behave differently. People of a new nature behave differently than when they had an old nature. That's why it's talking about like putting off the old man and putting on the new. You know, we have the mind of Christ. So you've been washed.
The things in those verses are fleshly things, and that's what we already know we should be getting rid of and dying to ourselves.
Yes, but we can't do it with our own strength.
Right.
We need God's strength. We are powerless to do it in of ourselves. We need to rely upon God to do that in us. Yep. That's why Jesus says in John 3, famous chapter, John 3, Jesus answered, verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born of water and the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of God. Well, that's interesting, because that's what Paul was getting at, is you will not inherit the kingdom of God if you are in these sins. So the reconciliation is, if you're born again, you will not fall back into that lifestyle. And if you do, you will repent before you die. If there is any regression whatsoever, you will repent before you die. But, let's go to verse 8. The wind bloweth where it listeth, meaning the Holy Spirit goes where it wants to. He wants to. I need to stop. Yeah. And thou hearest the sound thereof, but canst not tell whence it cometh and whither it goeth. So is everyone that is born of the Holy Spirit.
Right. Okay. Can you look at the Maud's latest message? So she thinks that you're telling her she's not saved. I think
she keeps accusing me of that.
The bot.
Now you're
Yeah,
telling me I'm
I
not
don't.
saved. Okay.
I don't want Mod to think that at all.
Okay, I get that. But I didn't ever go up to her and be like, "You're not saved." And I'm not. All I'm doing is reading these verses. Every time I read these verses, she gets upset, and I
Okay.
don't. And then I don't know what to do. And she says, "You're wrong on
Okay.
repentance too." Mod, I'm gonna have to do a separate
All right.
stream on this. We're gonna tackle this another time. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Be taken to a concentration camp. Like
Yeah.
in that instance, are you saying that the truth was better than a lie?
Well, we're not, we're actually not at discussing whether the truth is better than a lie. Now we're discussing consequences under the guise of talking about whether the truth is better than a lie. Because if we were saying the truth is better than a lie, then that would refer universally, and therefore the truth would also apply to the Nazis, meaning that they ought not kill the Jews. So in that case,
Agreed. I thought that
Right.
was just taken as given.
right, which
Can you
which
pause it?
contradiction of the model, because then if truth is
Right.
always preferential to a lie, then it would also be preferential to the Nazis, which need to repent from their Judy hating. So you can't work.
Well,
as an
no,
external
that's
Can you
model.
pause it for a sec?
Missing Mod, do you think I'm trying to like make you unsaved?
No, I think she's just in her feelings about it for a sec. No, I wanted to pause and say, Rex, you pointed out in this debate in the video you're watching.
Yeah.
You pointed out the complexity he added to the situation by introducing Yahtzees to the situation. Because the truth is that the Yahtzees should not be doing this in the first place. So them saying, well, if they tell you to do it, we're gonna get you in a gotcha here. No, you got to roll that back like you rolled it back to the Big Bang with pure material determinism. You got to go back to what the truth is the Yahtzees should not have been there in the first place doing that. So actually, causally, you don't have to cooperate with them at all because you don't want to be helping them on their agenda, which is evil, right?
Yeah, and then when I punched the scenario into Grok, the Grok conversation where I've been working on my argument, and one of the things it said is if I get to decide when to tell the truth and when not to tell the truth, that makes me the arbiter and not truth itself of when I should tell the truth and not. And I thought that was a valid point.
Okay.
Right,
No,
but
it's
that's
not.
to
It's
do with-
universal. No, because it's a
That's not
universal.
to do with.
That's a universal. We're talking about always. Now it's a universal. It's not particular
Right.
in the sense of depend. See, you're importing the goal dependent model, which I'm not doing because I
Yeah.
said always.
Right, and so and my response is not necessarily, because sometimes a lie is better than the truth.
that
And I would-
no. No.
I would argue that in an instance where the lie,
First of all, that yeah, I pretty much laid it out. It's goal based, his model, and to say a lie is better than the truth, then if that is true, then why ought I not have a continuous set of lies engineered to get me a certain result, and then say that lies are therefore the same as the truth or equal value in truth because I have a goal and you have a goal? Like, how do you? If a lie is better than the truth, then if I reject his proposition that a lie is better than the truth, would his statement be objectively better than mine? Should I adopt his statement? Because if a lie can be better than the truth, then I can just say no. I'll just say the opposite of what you said is true, and then he wouldn't
Right.
have any leg to stand on to say that I'm wrong.
Right, because their truth is relative. Right?
Yeah. I think in Shiva's case, he questions what truth would even mean, So, but then he also has his opinions, which he would call, he would think people
Relative.
he would say that people who are disagreeing with him were still wrong, though.
Right.
is
Relative,
going to
subjective.
save someone's life, that in that instance the lie is better than the truth.
Got it. So you would argue that the lie is better than the truth in order for a great priority. Great. Why does that lie? Why does that life have value in order to recommend us to one choice and one belief over the other?
That's what do you mean one life over the other?
Oh no. Sorry. Let me back that up. Let's say I could tell them the truth, or I could tell them the lie. Let's say I could tell them they're in the closet, or I can tell them they're not in the closet, or whatever. Why does their well-being and life serve as the tiebreaker to my moral choices as to what I ought to do?
I mean, it seems to be fairly universal that life is valued.
What? Absolutely not. I'm throwing my babies overboard every single day. Me and my objective Viking buddies, we throw our 1 second old babies into the water to see if they can survive.
But you do give them a 1 second year old, 1 second birthday. It's hard to say 1 second old without saying year. I don't know why.
Yeah, a 1 second year old. They're gonna grow up real quick in them waters, sucker.
Yeah.
And that's moral, right, guys? That's moral, right?
It's moral to you, but not to me.
What? Not to you?
No.
What?
But we can agree to disagree because you're a Viking and I'm a Mongol. And then we just have,
we just have different methods. That's all, right?
Different methods. Different strokes for different pillagings.
Exactly. You guys just don't understand the ways. But,
The ways.
Yep.
Like human life
valued,
especially.
but different than valuable because goals are subjective, right?
Yeah, of course. All goals are subjective. Yeah.
All goals are subjective. So his dilemma falls apart because it's no longer a dilemma of what I would do. Now it's just whatever I feel like doing, whether I feel like ratting him out or whether I feel like lying or whether I feel like not lying. So it's all equivalent. Rex, you need a pair of aviators. I think I have them in my car.
Join the club. They're the hater blockers.
The hater
from Mod. Stole it
Hold
from
on.
Mod.
Hold on.
All right, guys. You called for it. You know we need it. We gotta get the full aviator scopes going, sucker. Okay? We're dialing it in on the aviator crew, sucker. And you know what? Rex and Mod are gonna be fine. It's fine. Okay? Don't even worry
Rex isn't
about
even
it.
here anymore. It's
Oh shit. Here we go. Heck
What's your
yeah,
normative
dude.
authority? You will respect my normative authority.
Exactly, dude.
I think my ears are crooked. There we go. Yeah, these aren't even my aviators. What is it? The Ray-Bans that I found in the Whole Foods parking lot one day, they're all scratched up. I think those are in my car. But
Nice. So you stole those from a pilot.
Give me those. Yeah.
Great. So then their life doesn't necessarily serve as a tiebreaker between whether I tell them the truth or a lie.
Maybe not for
Furthermore,
All right, I'm going to play that one more time because I don't think atheists have a good way out of this one that I've heard yet.
Valued. Like human life
Valued,
especially.
but different than valuable because goals are subjective, right?
Yeah, of course. All goals are subjective. Yeah.
Great. So then their life doesn't necessarily serve as a tiebreaker between whether I tell them the truth or a lie.
That's it right there, man.
Maybe not for you.
Furthermore, by telling the truth to the Nazis on where the Jews were hiding, you would have told the Jews that you're hiding that you would have protected them. So by telling the truth to the Nazis, you would inadvertently be then telling a lie to the Jews that you said that you would protect.
Yeah, so I maintain that
I should be getting involved.
So Shiva actually thought that was a good point. I'm gonna get out of this costume because I can't do these.
Okay. You guys made him an cost. See, he cares about you guys. See, you had a request, he'll throw you a bone here or there if you're lucky, suckers. Huh? If you're lucky. Rex is getting out of a costume. He's gonna come back with the Velociraptor suit.
Yeah, that. I hope that never happens. It was bad enough doing what I just did.
No, that was cool.
I maintain that I wouldn't take that approach.
That's actually a good point.
So Shiva liked that point. It is creative, and it is interesting that in the case there is such a case of a lesser of two evils when those are the only two options. But then again, I'd still say that lying would be immoral, and therefore I'd be precluded from doing it. I would just obfuscate the best I could and try and see if I could jujitsu away from directly answering their question. And if I can't, I died with my integrity. That's it.
So that would be definitely a prioritization, which prioritization does mean that you have a moral map. So even if I took Terry Exposition, which I'm not taking Terry Exposition necessarily, but if I did take Terry Exposition, that relies on a pre-existing moral map that objectively guides my way of thinking and living.
Sure.
So that means that when we
So
opt
if
to,
it
so
was, if it was your family
here's
that was at risk.
here's the difference I want to talk about, because we're talking about ultimacy really in Truth and Lies. So I would
Well, I'm
still
not.
say that I know you're not, but because you're using a goal-based model, but if I'm using a universal model. So when you're saying that, sometimes it's better to tell a lie, that would mean that there is a principle within the universe that would be contradictory to why we ought to prefer the truth, and so the two would
No,
cancel out each
not
other.
in the universe.
Oh, then where
Like
does it
the
exist?
principle, I mean, in one's mind.
Okay, so what makes one's mind the locus of what somebody ought to do? Isn't that viciously circular when the
Well, then
contrary is
it's the
available?
locus of what, and all of our actions determined by our minds.
So, but do we have rationality to choose one or the other, A, B, or C?
I mean, yeah, most of us, I think, yeah.
Okay, so in the case of whether you would open the closet or not, you would say that there is an objective. If you use reason to determine that their lives are worth lying for, then you're saying that prior to your reasoning about that, there was an objective value by which you used to make a correct decision.
No.
He is forced to say no. And I knew that going into it. He cannot say yes. He cannot afford to say yes. Hey, Jess.
Run that point back, Rex.
Run it back? Want to do it
Yeah,
again?
make that point again, dude.
It's like Teletubbies here. Play it again.
Okay,
Play it
so
again.
in the case of whether you would open the closet or not, you would say that there is an objective. If you use reason to determine that their lives are worth lying for, then you're saying that prior to your reasoning about that, there was an objective value by which you used to make a correct decision.
No.
No. How significant is that? No. He can't point to an objective value system. So
And
he's
therefore, he
admitting
can't justify his rationality, because in order to have rationality, you have to have objective fixed points by which to reach a conclusion. And if the things that you value are not objectively valued, and you use your reason to determine that the things you value aren't objectively valued, you nullify your entire way of thinking.
because it's subjectivity and they just don't want to admit that. That's the problem. That's the
Right,
major
because-
issue. They're lying about it. Honestly, they're lying to themselves and to us. And you guys got to stop doing it. You're embarrassing yourselves.
Robin Webster says he is not forced to say no. He's being honest that there is no objective morality.
And
Then his whole Yahtzee scenario has no point whatsoever and is kind of just a bedtime story at best, because we're not actually making a dilemma, because dilemmas in this case would require moral considerations, but moral considerations are moot, and they're no different than what do you want for dinner tonight.
Right. And we have to go to those absurdities to show them the absurdity of their worldview, which no objective morality is absolutely absurd worldview. That's why I'm an objective Viking. I throw 1 second-year-old babies over the side, the port and the starboard, both of them.
That's why people who like say they're subjectivist, they also at the same time feel this sense of superiority to people who say, "Oh, I would let the Yahtzees in." They feel like, "Oh no, my way is actually better. I have reasons for my subjective." I can't even say it. I have reasons for my subjective point of view that are better than your subjective point of view, objectively. Like, yeah, the closest you could probably get to anything like this, which I still think is question begging, is Stefan Molyneux's universally preferable behavior, which is basically like what it's kind of golden rule-esque. It's like whatever, however you would want to be treated, you ought to treat others, and then because you would ought to do it that way, if you did anything in a way that you would not want to be treated, then therefore that would be immoral by definition, therefore giving a fixed point. So you would be wrong for ending someone's life because you wouldn't want your life ended. And universally, people don't want their lives ended. Therefore, by virtue of that, it becomes moral.
Right. Well, me as an objective Viking, I'm a warrior, and if I'm not thrown in the ocean 1 second from my birth and survived, then I'm not worthy. And I survived, okay? And I'm gonna do that to every 1 second-year-old baby going forth. I had to do it, and they have to too, and you think that's moral, suckers.
Just White says, I've known Teriak for a long time. He isn't saying no here because he's forced his position. This isn't Teriak saying no. His position is it's remained the same long time. He's just being honest about what he thinks. I agree that he's being honest about what he thinks. I'm not disagreeing and saying he's dishonest. What?
Do you think I'm
well,
strong?
You're apparently not a Viking, according to
I am.
I believe that Shiva is consistent. And by the way, Just White, this is not a critique of Teriak. Teriak and I are good friends, and we're on the same side as far as this goes. Yeah, so Shiva has to say no. But the problem with saying no is that any other moral judgment, which, by the way, he does make later on, has equal value as my moral judgment, even if my moral judgment is the exact contrary of his. So when you say we are straw manning, BS, this suck a dishonest representation of our position, then, I mean, tell me what subjective means without having it, only bind yourself and nobody else. Sorry, Zill. Robin Webster is here to wake you up from your dream from being a Viking.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Guys.
I don't think there is any such thing as an objective value. I don't even know what that means.
Okay. So an objective value would mean any trait or attribute of a thing that would be prescriptive to our thoughts and actions.
Right, but what makes it objective?
What makes an ought? Yeah. Are
No,
you asking
what
in
makes
my
it,
worldview?
No. What makes it objective? Not ought.
Because
Robin Webster says he don't have to say no. It's the answer that's the most intellectually honest. So if I gave the most intellectually dishonest answer, would that be objectively worse than the most intellectually honest answer? Just White says Teriak is a good dude. I must have misheard. I thought it was Teriak talking about objective morality. No, Teriak was actually on my side with this, and Teriak was saying that he thinks in the case of like the Yahtzees come to your house to take away the Uden, then you have a lie on your hands either way, because you lied to the Uden to say you'd protect them, and then now you're going to lie to the Yahtzees because either way you would have to produce a lie. But in my worldview, I would just obfuscate the best I knew how to at the time.
I would do my best to deceive them and get them out of there.
So you would lie?
Yeah. To them, yeah. Because the situation has become more complex.
Shiva, from what I've seen, does often change his positions and does contradict himself. That is, yeah. He will be saying that God is evil later in the stream, by the way. Robin Webster says, Rex, you are annoying as Jokic.
Oh, boy.
I didn't know she watched basketball. Is Jokic still playing for the Nuggets? Yeah. Dad joke. I'm not even a dad, but yeah.
It comes with their age. I'm the same age as you.
What makes a truth objective?
No, what makes the value objective?
In my worldview or in your worldview?
Right.
In your world.
Okay, Missing Mod says, how about telling them no? As in, no, they're not here? Well, or telling them no, I'm not giving them up. I think obfuscation, even though it's really low success rate, is still higher success rate than just saying, no, I'm not giving them up.
Or no, or she's saying like, just tell them no, they're not here.
That would be the
gone.
lie that I
Or you
wouldn't
can,
do.
right.
Give them your car and tell them to run or something.
That could be the distraction or whatever. Yeah.
Are
I
you
think,
hiding the
it's
Yuden in your house?
it's
Hey, you want my car? I guess that would work.
Oh my goodness, guys. Okay, guys, come on.
Oh!
We'll be
Not
good.
offering
Come
your
on.
car to the Yahtzees, but saying that
Guys.
give them your car. Yeah, I mean the problem is I'm sure there's going to be checkpoints on the roads.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Jess White says, I've had debates with Teriak about lying. He does believe lying in certain situations is the right thing to do, so that doesn't surprise me. Yeah. Well, Teriak and I have differences, but I like Teriak.
Yeah.
Yes, because
And I like Shiva too.
it corresponds affirmatively to the mind of God in my worldview. My question is, how outside of that, how can somebody who is atheistic determine how to use rationality if they're not value mapping?
They are value mapping.
How? Are they using reason to value map?
Yeah, I would guess so. Some of them.
So if they're using reason to value map, that means a reason leads them to objective values by which they're using a rational system to determine what is the correct and incorrect way of going forward.
Sorry. Objective means independent of one's opinions, right? That's what the word objective means.
Not according to me, it doesn't. No.
He's confusing himself, man, is what he's doing.
Yeah. So, but there are forks in the logic here that he has to give a yes or no to, and I'm gonna back that up
to determine what is the correct and incorrect way
of
going
forward.
Forward.
Sorry. Objective means independent of one's opinions, right? That's what the word objective means.
Can you reason? If we reason subjectively, and my reasoning is the exact contrary of yours, are both equally correct?
Not necessarily. It depends on what's being reasoned.
Okay, so it's possible that not all, that some ways of reasoning are superior to others.
Superior, it depends on what one is trying to achieve.
Okay, so it's gold.
But let's just say that I agree with that. Let's just say that I agree with that. That some forms of reasoning are, like, certainly if you're truth tracking, for example, I would agree that certain forms of reasoning are superior to others, right?
Right.
Like I would argue that if you're trying to track the truth, that deductive reasoning is superior than going based on a gut hunch.
According to who?
I call it gut punch because I misheard him. So be prepared for that.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, so I follow up on that part.
Okay. So, but in that case, if I said, oh, I want the gut punch, and then you want the reasoning, what's the tiebreaker between those two that makes you prefer reasoning over the gut punch?
Gut hunch.
Sorry, gut hunch.
Same thing.
I mean, for me, it'd be that I don't trust my hunches because they're quite often wrong. Like, turn out to be incorrect.
Okay. So,
and I don't like being incorrect.
Okay.
Which is a shame because I'm incorrect so often.
We know.
Life would be easier if you enjoyed being incorrect, I suppose. But let's say whatever your definition of incorrect is my definition of correct. And what's the tiebreaker between yours and my position?
What do you mean, what's the tiebreaker?
What is the grounds by which you could blame me for not taking your position and you could affirm your position as better than mine?
I mean, blame is an interesting word there.
It is. But
like, I'm not sure that I would blame you. I suppose for me, like the tiebreaker in terms of what I'm going to do, right? Because that's the only thing that I have kind of control over, is I suppose like how persuasive you are.
Okay.
What? I'm a very persuasive Viking. Do you know how persuasive I am, Rex?
You're gonna pull up on me, sucker?
You know how persuasive I am.
Okay. So the tiebreaker would be how persuaded I am. That's begging the question. I'm asking why you think something is a tiebreaker. What is the value of the thing that would persuade you one way or the other, or ought to persuade? Because And even then, you would have to admit, as a subjectivist kind of person, your whatever persuades you is only subjective to you and doesn't necessarily matter to other people. But if it persuades you, then it means that something outside of your present understanding changes your thinking because you think it is superior, regardless of what other people think, which would be a form of objective reasoning. Anyway,
I don't
And
know
it
why it's
could
so
be-
confusing to them. I don't know.
Like, depending on my state of mind, that I'm, swayed by emotional arguments. So like I might find an emotional argument particularly compelling. I mean, that hasn't tended to be the case so far, but it's not outside the realms of possibility.
Sure. Can you judge goals like somebody's goal is better than another person's goal, or the contrary of a goal is bad and the affirmation of said goal is good? Is that possible to compare goals and have one goal objectively fall short of the value of another goal, or is that not possible?
No, I don't think. I mean, I think it's possible for you to subjectively do that.
I have a
But
goal
again, okay, no, actually, yes, I think you can.
all right, let's back that up because he changed his mind pretty quick. And I want to parse and pick out what that was.
Another person's goal? Sure. Can you judge goals like somebody's goal is better than another person's goal, or the contrary of a goal is bad and the affirmation of said goal is good? Is that possible to compare goals and have one goal objectively fall short of the value of another goal, or is that not possible?
No, I don't think. I mean, I think it's possible for you to subjectively do that.
So that's consistent. That would be consistent if he stayed on that path. But wait, there's more.
But again, okay, no, actually, yes, I think you can, because there's such a thing, because there's more than one type of objectivity, right? So, like, there's instrumental objectivity.
Right, but that would be descriptive, not prescriptive, right? That would just describe the steps necessary in the physical world to achieve
Right,
something.
yeah.
That would
and
describe
that's
the value of the thing they're achieving.
Well, no, that is prescriptive.
Nice.
Interesting.
If you need to follow those steps, that's a prescription.
But if the sun needs to shine, it must continue to.
The sun doesn't need to shine.
Who are you to say what the sun does and doesn't need to do?
Yeah, sucker.
That's all subjective to the sun. Leave the sun alone. It's the sun's business. But what I'm saying is, if you take he's not a physicalist. He doesn't even know what he is for sure when it comes to metaphysics. But if you took a physicalist model of the universe and everything was just nature, then the sun shining is just as natural as us doing what we want to do as animals, right? It just comes down to the chemical composition achieving reactions through continued chemical activity in our brains, which is no different than any other physics whatsoever. It might look different to us or feel different to us, but what does it matter? We're just worm food walking around, waiting for that day when we become a banquet for the worms. Delicious. And then all of a sudden the Vikings will come and have their worm banquet, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Is the sun shining moral, guys? Is that moral? Huh?
It's not. It's the sun shining in and of itself is not moral, but I would be immoral to say that the sun does not shine because that would be a lie and I know better.
How dare you? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, based on that's deductive, or no, that's no, inductive, because you don't know if the sun's going to shine tomorrow.
So I think Chapingra was saying that it was called abduction in that case. There is inductive reasoning, but he corrected me and said it was actually should be called the problem of abduction.
Okay, sorry. I don't want to rabbit trail. Sorry.
Anyway.
Okay, but if we're hold on, let me finish here. If we are merely Shiva, if we're merely physical beings, right? Then all we're describing here is physical circumstances that result in following physical phenomena.
I'm not sure that we are merely physical beings. I don't know that I'm a materialist.
Fair enough. You've not taken a stance on that.
Well, kind of. I think I might be a physicalist, maybe, in that. Because
all right. I'm gonna ask AI what the difference is between physicalism and materialism, because it's not apparent to me face value.
Right, because material
Maybe
is
he thinks
physical.
that the personhood is something that's emergent from matter, but in materialism, no such thing occurs. Physicalism and materialism are largely synonymous and often used interchangeably in contemporary philosophy to express the view that everything is really ultimately physical. However, physicalism is technically broader, encompassing not just solid matter, but also energy, space-time, physical laws, and forces, whereas traditional materialism is primarily restricted to tangible matter.
So just fancy materialism with physics and stuff.
I suppose.
I don't know what consciousness is. Like, if you were to ask me, is consciousness material or immaterial? Like, I wouldn't be able to give you an answer, right? It doesn't, like, it seems like my mind is immaterial, but
put it in a jar.
I'm not
then
aware.
If
Put
it's
it in a
material,
jar.
put it in a jar. You can't put your mind in a jar. You know what I'm saying?
I have an approximation of what you're saying.
My point is the mind is metaphysical.
Yeah.
They can't make an argument that it's physical. You can't put it into a jar.
I would think that the mind would be probably in the spiritual plane, because that's to do with the person.
Right. That's my point.
Yeah, but metaphysical makes it sound like you're talking about mathematics or like the laws of logic, or
Well, that's how we describe consciousness. That will be in the metaphysical realm. I guess I would say.
Real, but I'm not aware of a consciousness existing without a body. Like, I've never met a consciousness. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that I'm not aware of it, and I tend to use the supervenience model. So, like, my current thinking, and this is, you know, provisional, because all of my views are provisional, is that something immaterial can.
Hey, certainty exists. Do you want to pop up? You want me to drop the link for you? If you have not met Certainty Exists, he plays a lot of good videos with our lectures by Greg Bahnsen, who was a 1980s to 1990s Reformed Presbyterian Christian philosopher and debater. And he's got some good debates out there. Certainty Exists. He goes by JG, and he's got some good things to say on this matter. So yeah, if you want to hop up, I'll drop the link in the chat.
Can supervene on the material. Like an example of that in physics would be magnetic fields, right? Which are themselves immaterial, but which supervene on the material. And whilst you can't say that the material causes the immaterial, you can say that a change in the underlying material brings about a change in the immaterial.
Wait, can you pause
like
it?
For example,
have you heard materialists talk about, okay, so there's magnetic forces, there's magnetic fields. Have you heard any talk about that being physical? Because
I was just allowing it for the sake of the argument, because it doesn't affect my point one way or the other.
Okay, it's another rabbit trail, my bad.
No, you can pontificate about it. That's fine. I don't claim to know. I tend to think of charges as coming from matter, because, you know, different particles, like atomic particles, subatomic particles, have different charges, and so therefore those charges themselves aren't made of matter. They just emanate from the matter. So
right. Anyways, I love nature.
I'm not a scientist. Aiden would probably know more than me on this topic.
Yeah. God made nature amazing, and science is the attempt to study and understand it.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna drop the link for Certainty Exists. Yeah, we're gonna be on for a bit. Rev Russ is supposed to come back at some point too.
Okay, I am good for probably another hour at least around.
That's fine. I was planning on flying solo anyway, so having friends along the way is
Okay,
part of
cool.
the journey. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, yeah,
This is a good discussion.
If
so
you're
far.
looking,
yeah. This is the biggest. This has so far been the biggest test of my argument, because obviously Matt Dillahunty and Seth Andrews had nothing, so they had to switch back to Old Faithful, which is mute button and yes or no to my oversimplified questions. So
looking at a painting that's evoking a particular kind of quality of beauty within your experience, right? And then you like someone comes along and then changes the brushstrokes or adds more paint or takes paint away from the painting, then your experience of beauty will also change. So yeah, it seems to me like, because I don't know what consciousness is, like it could be that it's somehow completely like discrete from our physical forms, but without any evidence to support that view, it's not one that I can claim with confidence. Yeah, so I wouldn't describe myself as a materialist, but I might be a physicalist.
Okay. In what way would you say that the goal-based ethic is prescriptive? Would you say it's one-to-one the same as prescriptions of moral standards?
It depends. If you're trying to achieve a particular goal and you need to follow certain steps to attain that goal, then there's a type of objectivity called instrumental objectivity.
Yeah.
And in terms of morals, a good example of that, I mean, I would argue the same that this is the same for Christianity, but the Buddhist ethical framework, the precepts are not goals in themselves; they're a means to an end, right? If you want to become a Buddha, you have to abide by the precepts, because without sticking to the ethical guidelines, those ethical training principles, you won't be able to attain to a calm mind, you won't be able to meditate, and you won't be able to cultivate insight. Like, so in all,
right. So, you know, again,
who cares? I'm a Viking.
he has
I
these
don't
goals.
care.
The question is, are the
don't care.
goals objectively moral, or are they rational? Are they
Exactly.
are they justified?
I'm a freaking objective Viking, suckers. And I don't care about your silly willy nilly enlightenment. You think I care?
Silly willy zilly nilly enlightenment and zilly vanilly.
You think I care, suckers? I'm throwing babies overboard on the daily.
When are you gonna get your horn hat?
Right? I should, right?
You probably should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In order to become a Buddha, you objectively have to follow the ethical precepts.
Sure, but the ethical precepts you wouldn't consider to be mechanistic. Like if I want to build a car, I need to make an engine. It wouldn't be like it would be an actual failing of a standard by which I become blameworthy. Whereas I don't think like if I went to build a car, but I failed to build a car because I didn't have the knowledge, I would be guilty of something.
Right. No, no, it is exactly like that.
Huh?
Oh.
So I'm guilty if I want to build something, and because I'm not used the optimized means, that I incur moral guilt in the same way that this goal-based ethics system is supposed to be fully explanatory of everything that is moral.
I'm just as confused as you, dude. I can't understand it either.
Could I get forgiveness from the car that I failed to build? Is there a justice system where I go to car jail for failing to build a car?
I don't know, man. It's so confusing to me.
Does the car get reparation anyway?
Really?
Like, I mean, like I wouldn't like guilt. I mean, first of all, like guilt, I think is an entirely useless and self-referential emotion. Guilt is not the same as remorse, right?
I'm talking about what we talked about earlier with T-Jump was the status of guilt rather than the feeling of guilt, because I think you can be guilty without feeling guilty.
Right. So
you talk about
you mean just
psychopaths,
like
they do that all the
culpable?
time.
Yeah, yeah. You
If you want to
culpable,
use that
right?
word, I think that's probably just as good.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
That was good.
Sorry, could you?
Yeah. So
lost
what
the
I'm
thread-
well,
lost the
okay.
thread.
So what you said that you need to obtain
Mhm.
certain ethical norms in your life in order to achieve becoming a Buddha, correct? But I'm
Yes.
saying that you wouldn't consider those ethics a mechanistic form of ought, like a goal-based ought, in the terms of you crank the wheel and then you get a result. But you would
Yes, I
say
would.
that you would.
So it's
It's a
mechanical.
pinball machine.
It's not obligatory. It is just descriptive of this action has this effect.
Right. You put the quarter in the machine, you twist the knob, and you get the little thing with the little ring pop in it, and you're happy. And that's moral, right?
Because you had a goal and you followed through with the goal. The problem is there's no accountability for failing goals in this model. It's just like, to say that I have failed to achieve, it just doesn't map onto what we understand morality to be with justice and forgiveness and how those two things can coexist in the same universe objectively.
Well,
I mean,
even saying goals is begging is that begging the question of them assuming that their goals are moral, that
It is.
people will choose the
Because what's
correct
the point?
goals.
I don't know if it's begging the question, but it is leaving something
Smuggling
unanswered.
something.
It is at least leaving it unanswered. It's like, why should I care about what the goal is?
Right.
What makes a goal and the contrary of a goal equal?
Right.
Like, and if the goal and the contrary of a goal are equal, you've nullified whatever you'd want to call morality in any sense that would teach us anything.
Right.
Yeah, of
And
course.
because because as you pointed out, the value system, they need to ground their value system. How do you evaluate things? How can you compare two goals with each other? And what is the arbiter to decide which is better? I have my Viking goals. We need strength in babies, surviving the ocean, okay? And that's my goals. And they can't say that their goals are better than mine.
They can't.
If you don't abide by the ethical in the Buddhist system, the kind of very first step is actually generosity, right? That actually sits underneath morals, right?
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, there's a kind of threefold like model of Buddhist practice, which is ethics, meditation, insight, right? You can't, in the Buddhist system, you cannot cultivate insight without
adorable.
meditation.
It's so cute.
But you can't.
What's adorable?
Him talking about his love for the Buddha system. I just think it's really cute, and it's just, sweet, and I'm glad he likes that system, and that's really cute. That's great. I don't care about it. I'm going to plunder the entirety of his entire thing. I'm going to take all his stuff and stuff like that.
Well, that would be not his preferences, but subjectively speaking, there was no real tiebreaker because, some goals aren't better than others.
Achieve a stable meditation practice that allows for insight if your mind is agitated. And according to the Buddhist system, acting unethically agitates the mind. So yes, it's mechanistic.
Oh, I didn't know if I catch that the first time, but acting unethically agitates the mind. Why does acting unethically agitate the mind unless truth is prescriptive? Unless there is a way that we ought to live that coincides with what we are.
And that goes with God's law written on our hearts, right?
Yeah, and it goes against us being created in God's image, and therefore sin, like lying, is going to negatively affect us. It's going to go against our purpose. It's going to go against our design. It's going to damage us.
Yep. I believe the base conscience that most humans share is that description of God's law written on our hearts. And and that kind of thing, and that must come from somewhere, and I think it's from there.
Are there any ethics that you would be culpable for offending regardless of what your personal goal is?
Yeah, sure. If I were to commit murder, then I would be culpable for that, right?
Great.
I
So
would
it
be
would not be
held
dependent on
responsible.
so it would not be dependent upon your personal voluntary goals. It would be independent of your goals, the culpability, whether you decide to play the game or not.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about when I talk about objectivity. But how can you be blameworthy if there is no responsibility to anyone that would exist? And if there is a responsibility, how does that work?
Right. Murder is
Because
totally
whether
cool.
we-
Well, the word murder has the word unjustified already baked into it.
Okay.
Because killing is neither qualified as just or unjust, but murder would
Alright.
be, necessarily unjustified. But
Alright.
you could ask why murder is, worse than its contrary in somebody's mind. You know, what makes somebody's life valuable to me that I am bound to, regardless of my personal opinion, respect it.
Right. Why respect anybody? Great point.
Like it or not, we are held responsible for our actions.
What does that mean?
It means it doesn't matter if you're a moral nihilist who has the genuine belief that morals don't exist, right? Whether you believe that, if you believe that and then you go out and rob people and then you get caught for that, well, you're going to be held responsible for those actions, irrespective of your views on the nature of morals. Because other
depending
people,
on where you live.
other people.
Well, that's the thing. Is like now if you hear him, he's bringing in other people. So the other people is the only extent of responsibility that he brings into it, which I address as an ad populum, because them being the final authority when they're not a sufficient authority because they have the possibility of being wrong, just kicks the can down the road of or changes the arena of why should I value X? Why should I value what the people say?
Right.
I mean, he used to live at one point in a majority Christian country, and he's probably happy that it's like 50-50 believer, non-believer. But now what? Not like, why are you happy? Why is that? I mean, he might not be happy. I don't know. But why is that a good thing? Why is that objectively preferable? And if it's not objectively preferable, then what reasons do you have that are justified to you in order to have that opinion?
Yeah, let's say you did something that's illegal in North Korea, but it's not illegal here. Is it bad that you did it? Because it's bad in North Korea? Is it bad that you did it because in some place in the world there's a populace that says it's bad? You know, if you do something against Sharia law in America, are you bad? Because if you lived over there, it's bad, depending on where you are?
Yeah, I guess.
I'm saying if they bring up governments, it's relative and subjective to the area and the governments in that area. There are places with Sharia law, right?
Sharia.
There we go.
If anybody doesn't know, that was part of the Chia commercial line, but
I caught it.
I will see my way out now.
We'll say, don't do that. We don't like that. And if you do that, then these are going to be the consequences.
But how is that not just a description of evolutionary installments in our behavior rather than something that exists beyond our rational thoughts and our rational, like before our rational thoughts?
It isn't.
It doesn't.
Zilzone, this is sad bub. I do not know what that means.
Abe, come on, bro.
Abe, if you want to join, the link is in the chat.
So it is
come and meet the interlocutor, Mr. Zill to the Zone, to the PhD.
Right.
Right.
No,
really descriptive.
Actually, okay, let me back up a bit so we get some of that context back.
Do that, then these are going to be the consequences.
But how is that not just a description of evolutionary installments in our behavior rather than something that exists beyond our rational thoughts and our rational, like before our rational
It
thoughts?
isn't.
It doesn't. So it is a description.
No,
it's
no,
really descriptive.
No, it's prescriptive. Look, if a parent tells a child, don't do that, is that a prescription?
See, now we're narrowing into a smaller and smaller space for him to play. Abe Dinkus says, I can't, unfortunately. Mr. President, I thought you were the president, okay? I thought you were in charge. Who's got you? Are you a Russian asset, Abe Dinkus?
Uh-oh.
Abe Dinksky?
Yes, because you actually have a personal source by which that prescription would exist, which would be a sort of a corollary
and the
to
same
God.
goes. Yeah, and the same. No, it would be the parent.
I agree that in the isolated
What
case we're using
parent?
it would be the parent, but you would have a personal source in that case. In the case of humanity at large, there's no personal source there to actually make that correspondence real.
Right. What about the legal system?
What legal system?
What about the legal system? I agree that we have a legal system, but in a godless world, the legal system is just an outcropping of evolutionary pressures that have converged into how we relate together as a species. But that's merely descriptive phenomena. It's only prescriptive in a colloquial sense of like that's what the powers that be do. But that just breaks down to force doctrine. But then you just have to ask, does force doctrine have any value compared to the contrary? And then we're back to the dilemma.
I mean, like it's. I mean, first of all, I think okay, like what's your?
He's getting a little back on the ropes a little bit.
It's not at all clear to me, in any way whatsoever, that morals are. I'm going to say metaphysically objective. Like that, if you're going to make that claim, which seems to be the claim that you're wanting to make.
It is the claim I'm wanting to make.
Then that claim needs justification.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
This is exactly where we pass go and collect 200.
Nice.
Then that claim needs justification.
Awesome. I'm glad you said that. So, if that claim needs justification, therefore, if I make a claim, I therefore ought to back it up or reject said claim because truth is objectively more.
No, if you want to convince me.
So I don't actually. So it's not that ideas have to be backed up. You just prefer that they're backed up, but objectively speaking, no idea ever has to be backed up ever.
Presumably, you do want to convince me.
But regardless,
But I want your goal to be this. So I'm not even worried. Like, here's the thing. I don't think arguments fundamentally convince everybody. Like we went over earlier, I believe regeneration is the only thing that matters in terms of somebody's actual relationship with God. Whether or not you believe that God or Jesus exist is separate. And even if you believe that they are God, it's totally separate to whether or not you're reconciled to God in the first place. You're only reconciled if by faith and repentance. Right? You trust what Christ did for you on the cross. He died for your sins because you have sinned. You've offended God. You and God are not on good terms on your own. You cannot use good works. You cannot use your righteousness to get to heaven. You need the free gift of Jesus taking your place on the cross, being nailed, bleeding out, dying, and receiving the Father's wrath all on top of that, which is an infinite wrath for the sin that has offended an infinite God. And because Jesus is God, he can receive all of an infinite punishment in a finite amount of time. So Christ died for your sins in your place to save you. And he was raised again on the third day, according to the scriptures. So death didn't defeat him, and death will not be the end of you if you trust in Christ alone to pay for your sin debt, because you cannot do it any of yourselves. It's not by your righteousness. It's not by your works. And God gives it as a free gift to change you, change your heart, and make you into a new person and have a right relationship with God. In atheism, you don't have that. In any other worldview, you don't have that. You don't have a means by which to actually satisfy the wrath of God outside of Christ. Now, let's back this up so I can get the context here.
Prefer that they're backed up, but objectively speaking, no idea ever has to be backed up ever.
Presumably, you do want to convince me.
But regardless, that's the separate question of whether convincing you is rational or has any value or not. And if you're going to make any rational claim, for example, if you're going to reject God based on a set of principles and logical axioms, then that means that you believe those set of principles and logical axioms have prescriptive value over you, not merely goal-based, but transcendental in their scope.
No.
They assume they have God's morals themselves. They have the best correct morals, and if you disagree with them, you're wrong. Why? Why?
Because.
Oh, okay. Trust me, bro.
Axioms, then that means that you believe those set of principles and logical axioms have prescriptive value over you, not merely goal-based, but transcendental in their scope.
No. It seems to me that you're using the word prescriptive in a really narrow sense.
I use it the same way you used it. You used a personal source over a personal source, a parent over a child.
Those were your words.
That was your words, sir. That was your words.
Yeah, no, I used a parent as an example, but I also used the legal system as an example.
Which is also from a personal source. But let's look at it this way. Can a rock tell a child that they are responsible to the rock?
As far as I'm aware, no.
What about the laws of physics? Can the laws of physics tell a child what their purpose is in life?
No, I don't think that's within the purview of science.
Why'd you ask those two interesting questions? Elucidate the point a bit.
I asked those two questions to eliminate other possibilities besides personal sources as a grounding for morality. And because God is a personal source, he has a relationship with other personal beings, which would be you and I as humans. So if they want to say that morality exists, they have to ground it in something that's personal, because everything else reduces to nonsense, arbitrariness, circularity, or anything with insufficient explanatory power for moral actions.
Excellent. That's an argument for a personal God, which points towards the Christian God. I like that.
Yeah, it could. This argument is on its own not sufficient to point to Christ, but it is at least good to point to
That's a quality of God.
It's an attack on atheism from the inside of debate itself.
Okay.
Because debate prescribes honesty, truthfulness, rejection of wrong, attesting to what is right, the ability to correct yourself and be willing to be corrected. All of these things are moral realm stuff.
Right. And the rationality behind deciding that it's good to correct yourself or become better. There's some rationality behind that. Why is it even good to become better? Why?
Right. Is what's the tiebreaker between better and worse that I ought to value better?
Yeah.
If worse is just as real an option to me, then what makes one option necessary and another option what I ought to avoid?
Right. And it is absurdity. Their position is reduced to absurdity.
Yeah.
Is it?
No, it is not. What about the laws of logic? Could the laws of logic tell a child what they ought to do?
What are the laws of logic?
We'll use the three classical, the law of non-contradiction, of course.
They're not laws of logic.
Okay.
They're the laws of thought. You can't derive a system of logic from the law of non-contradiction, the law of identity, and the law of excluded middle.
So has anyone ever broken
Has
anyone ever broken the laws of thought? Has anyone ever broken the laws of thought?
Yeah, I do. All the fucking time.
In what sense are they a law? Then in what sense are they a law?
That's what they're called.
Okay,
all
so
the
that's
rules of
back
thought.
to human convention.
That's what they're called. Why are they called that if they're not seen as a law? And if they are seen as if they're not seen as a law, then yeah, why are they called that? If they are seen as a law, then we're back to square one. How can you break a law that still exists and does exist? Unless you have rationality and moral agency. And there are things that there are objectively real things that those elements of yourself interact with.
Just call them rules of thought. I think they might be called the rules of thought, but rules, laws.
Maybe the ordinances of thought, or the oracles
Wait.
of thought, or the guidelines of
Can-
thought. I mean, go ahead, Zil.
Can you tell us the rules of thought? Because I know the three laws of classical laws of logic are the law of identity, the law of non-contradiction, and the law of excluded middle. And I learned that only recently. Now, what are the laws of thought?
It's just what he's using to relabel the laws of logic, I think.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
Why
it's
do
just-
we
it's
play
just a
these
labeling-
games, guys?
It's
Why
just a
are-
labeling thing.
This is the second time he's done that.
Well, he
3X.
thinks that
This is the
there-
second time he's done that.
I think that what he's getting at is he doesn't believe that there are laws of logic such as that we ought to obey them. These are just the laws of what humans subjectively, because laws of logic to him probably sound like a transcendental reality that encompasses all of the universe.
And he doesn't
Or
want
the
to address that
multiverse or whatever he would believe in.
philosophically. He doesn't
Right.
want to philosophically address that.
So he would say that the laws of thought rather don't occur transcendentally but subjectively to each individual
Which is
rational agent.
ridiculous. Because my laws of logic are throwing babies overboard on the daily, suckers.
That's a lot of pregnant women to do that on the daily. Like honestly, what were you supposed to be, a maternity ward? And you're just like, I'm rebelling, sucker.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Like you just became like Planned Parenthood Sea Cruise.
Like, yeah.
Okay, so they can be broken. So in what sense are they a law if they can be broken and that you can continue on in them? It's not like the laws of physics where they are, you have non
Right, but these are
entities that
different.
are necessarily bound by those.
These are-
Loosely
These
speaking.
are different contexts, right?
Right.
they?
That's why I want to
Well-
know what you mean by law in the laws of logic. And now you're saying the laws
I
of
didn't
thought.
mention the laws of logic. You did.
I-
And all I did,
I'm getting
all I did
frustrated
was
right
correct
now.
you on.
Yeah, he's frustrated. He says that he said he noticed recently that every time he goes on Teriax, something happens to frustrate him. And I think Teriak, he's got a chaotic thing going on here with his show.
Well,
He likes the chaos.
He's
He thrives
frustrating
in
me.
chaos.
And so what I was saying, he is frustrating me right now.
Oh,
Yes.
well now I know.
His
One
ignorance.
word, which was thought rather than logic.
And I was about to say, which
Not
you said laws
Teriak,
of
I'm
thought,
talking
which
about
is
Shiva.
fine. Are these laws
Right.
possibly broken? You said yes. And then in which sense is they a law? That's the next question. In what sense are they a law if they can be broken, if we don't have some free moral agency at play, irrespective of physics playing on our
Sorry,
brain?
do you think that like breaking the laws of thought or the laws of logic, let's just call them the laws of logic, but I'm kind of, it's a bit of a bugbear of mine. I kind of want people to use the right nomenclature because I'm a bit pedantic.
That's fine.
Is there a kind of moral?
I can't help but just enjoy Teriak's facial expression as this is
Oh
happening.
yeah.
You can tell he's like sucked in. He's like
Yeah.
this is his World Cup here almost. Okay, maybe I'm inflating it a bit much, but he's definitely like, you don't often see him engaged in this level. Usually like he is the most entertaining person on his show, bar none. He's a very entertaining guy. He really has it. But I just seeing his entertainment is just like seeing him being entertained is I don't know, it's something to
That's
witness
a thumbs
'cause
up.
he is not let's put it this way, he is not easily entertained, which is why he provides the entertainment. He's that kind of person.
On your view, is there a moral component to, say, contradicting, like making a contradictory statement? Like if I was to say, that's a square circle, is there like a moral aspect to that statement?
Yeah, so for example, if you say that's a squared circle, I have the moral responsibility to tell you, unless there is a prevailing concern of why I ought not tell you. I have the moral responsibility to correct you and say you cannot have a squared circle. If I fail to do so, I leave you
Right.
in ignorance when I can do otherwise. And in your
That's not-
case, you have faculties
not
that
a-
you ought. Well,
That's
hold
not the
on.
question that I asked.
But you said there's a moral aspect. I gave you a moral aspect.
Right, but I'm talking about not the interlocutor. I'm talking about the
I also want to correct this. I don't mean an interlocutor either. I could be just a friend, not somebody who's here to debate anybody. But if somebody who I consider a friend said, that's a squared circle, I'd be like, what are you talking about? No, we have to fix this. There's no such thing as a
Right.
squared circle. That's an inherent contradiction, right? But if the individual persists in saying, after receiving better and also after having many chances to have known better and neglected the means to inform their mind, because we're supposed to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, strength, and mind. We're supposed to cultivate our mind as well. So how can you do that when you're not maximizing what your mind can do by continuous learning? So yeah, negligence is a sin, and therefore every instance where your negligence continues to produce failure in your life, those failures are also a sin that are outcroppings of your a previous failure. So yeah, you are morally bound. Like, for example,
Well,
you have
no,
to take care of what belongs to you. You can't just let it like
we have to be
rot.
good stewards of our gifts from God, but
Right.
also our moral duty to seek the truth is grounded in God and God's morals for Christians. But there is no grounding for that for atheists. You have no grounding to draw a line for why we should seek the truth at all. What if I love lies and I'm going to live my whole life following, and I don't even care? What if I hate critical thought? Forget it. Right? That should be okay. Right? I don't know. There's a point in there somewhere. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
got
that's
this.
the thing is like, what's the tiebreaker between that and the contrary, basically?
Person who's making the contradictory statement. If someone
Okay,
makes a
so
statement that's contradictory, does that statement have a kind of moral component to it?
in virtue of the fact that we ought to think correctly, we ought to think in correspondence to reality as best we can. We're not held to be omniscient because we can't be omniscient. But if we
Right.
have the faculties to know better, we do not avail ourselves of the information necessary to know better. We are culpable by not knowing better relative to our development in our life.
Yeah, so if we're an adult and we are neglecting parts of our life that need improvement, I mean, some things are better than others, but if you're crazy enough to say squared circle or inherent contradiction, you need to get your act together. You need to have some alarm system in you being like, this is not cool. I need to get this right, right? Because otherwise, you're just going to be a burden on others. And even then, you have a responsibility towards God to make yourself the best you can be in order to tackle on what's in front of you. And so any negligence is a form of failure. And if you have a fundamental negligence of thought, the whole book of Proverbs is about wisdom. So that's an imperative on us to be wise, to seek wisdom, to seek it more than gold, to seek it more than rubies. And so that would be an imperative on us to not be foolish.
I agree, and I think it's important for us to seek rationality and to reject irrationality where we find it, because if people are thinking squared circles are a thing and inherent incoherencies, then I wouldn't want to drive on the road with these people. I want you to stop at the stoplight, okay, and the stop sign, and I want you to use your turn signal. I don't want to be scared about you not being able to comprehend rationality. It's very scary to me. You know what I mean?
Indeed.
Why?
Because we have purpose, and that purpose comes from a personal source, because as you have suggested, there's no evidence to come to the conclusion that impersonal sources can give purpose or direction to a life or determine which way we should value map and therefore which way we ought to reason.
What's our purpose?
Yeah, our purpose is to enjoy God and glorify him forever.
Fuck that. Glorify God?
Indeed.
Get fucked.
Well, you asked me. I gave you my answer.
Glorify God. God made a world in which people suffer so much they kill themselves. Fuck God.
All right. Well, I will stop talking now.
Mystic Mod says she is not going to stop at stop signs. She will use stop signs as go signs going forward. Birds aren't even real. Welcome to the show. Please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't. We are so close to 200 here at the Reexamination Show. It'd be great to reach that 200 level. There's 11 people right now. If all of you are subscribed, thank you so much. For those of you who have not, please consider the generous donation of exactly $0 to click the subscribe button and bring us closer and closer to 200 and beyond. And who
Let's
knows? Maybe I'll
go.
open up a Discord at some point.
Let's go.
In terms of purpose, I would say pursue meaning.
I'm gonna go. Sorry, Rex. That was inappropriate of me. I apologize. I'll see you
Shiva,
guys later.
Even though we never met in real life, I actually do really care about you, and I do like these conversations with you. And maybe it was irresponsible of me to even go there. But
No,
Mod says, I'll sub, I guess. I thought you were subbed, Mod. I thought you subbed.
She's trolling you. She's trolling you.
I was like, I thought you subbed after my debate with Aiden.
it's see, this is why I kind of realized recently that I'm probably never going to be able to actually debate a Christian ever again.
Okay.
Especially if morals come up. Because they're going to then say that God is a source of morality. And it's like, he made a world in which children get cancer. And if he's omnipotent, and we are taking omnipotence to mean having the ability to do anything that isn't a logical contradiction or doesn't break the three classical laws of thought for some reason, right?
Okay, to be fair, it is possible to make a fallacy and not commit a sin. But in terms of if you are continuously living in foolishness, and to the degree that you think there are squared circles, then there is culpability there in terms of like, you ought to know better. You ought to know better. You've heard the term ignorance is no excuse when it comes to like police officers. Ignorance is also no excuse as you age past being a baby. You have awareness such as to leave you culpable of how to think correctly.
I believe there's an age of accountability, and I think Jewish tradition had that age set. Hold on. It was some certain age or so.
Yeah, at some certain age, I don't think it's defined by a number, but at some certain age, people know that what they're doing is wrong, or and do it anyway, and that would be accountability for that age. I actually don't know who Mod Boss is, but I'm hoping that they're subscribed. LOL. So she's talking to herself with a sock puppet account.
She's cool like that.
Then he didn't have to make a world in which children get cancer. He chose to. And see, yeah, it's a bastard because I actually really enjoyed debating Christians. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. But
all right, Shiva. Well,
no, I'm
Shiva,
going to hang around. I've calmed down, Rex. I do apologize. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Shiva, again, I like talking to you, Shiva. Even though we disagree, I like you as a person, and I like talking to you. I find you very intelligent and very interesting. Let me give me 1 second. Teriak, could you throw the link in your chat one more time, because I don't know if Robin Webster wants to come in.
Yep. 1 sec. Wait, do I throw it in your chat?
Yeah, so that's the main of the debate, and he gives it oy vey.
If you want to. Well, I'll say this, Robin. You definitely come in. I definitely like Shiva. When it comes to like, I don't know if it would trigger Shiva. If I want to put it totally frankly, if you come in and you want to start doing the thing. If you don't know who Robin Webster is, guys, she is another atheist content creator. She has also appeared with Tavo Sanabri on a couple of occasions that I'm aware of. So she's we know each other through Missing Mod, which is part of the Breakfast Tacos network, which actually, Shiva, you've been on Breakfast Tacos before. I think it was in the after panel of the Eli versus Monkey Boy thing.
Oh yeah, in which my view is still that Monkey Boy bodied Eli really horrendously.
All right, let me get this over to my chat so that Robin can come on.
But Rex, don't bounce and don't stop talking, like, because you're not responsible for my emotional volatility. That's entirely my responsibility.
I know I'm not
Well,
responsible, but I do recognize that there is a modicum of responsibility in my effect on other people because harsh words stir up strife, things like
Yeah,
that.
but you weren't
You're
actually
just being
being harsh.
gracious.
Correct.
Whilst you two boys decide to go work out how things are going to work out, I can sit in the middle going, boys and girls, there's a like button, there's a subscribe button. It's awesome, it's great, and touch it, tickle it, make it your friend, and maybe one day when you feel inclined.
I've tried touching and tickling people, and I haven't got any friends out of that yet. So, I mean, I don't know about you, Zill. But it's not the most reliable method by scientific metrics.
No.
Just go along and send some money to any of the fucking panelists. It'll be awesome. It'll be great.
Touch, tickle, and ask for money.
They will appreciate it. Look at me.
Oh,
I
you
said
got
that
200?
without saying
actually,
without saying
No
a
way.
single swear word. Fucking
I-
hell! I'm
Proud of you, Charles.
Alright,
getting
I'm
better.
checking.
I'm getting so much better. I'm trying not to.
Woo! Let's
I do need
go.
to bounce.
You gotta
actually,
ring
but
the
I should
bell,
be,
bro.
Like,
Gotta ring
200
that bell.
times.
Yeah.
I've got an appointment
Thank you.
I need to go to. But
Thank you, everybody, for the 200 subs. I'm going to quickly screenshot that, but so I know it's not a dream. Yeah, baby.
Good stuff, man. Congrats, dude.
Thank you. Zill, couldn't have done it without you.
Let's freaking go. Yes, you could have. Good stuff, though.
Yeah, probably. But
Yeah,
I just want to say
probably.
that. I just want to say that because you're right here, and it's like if I did do it with the past is the past, and now that you were in the past as a screenshot, then therefore I couldn't do it without you because that was in the past, and
All
you
right.
can't change the past.
All right. There we go. Hey, congrats, man. 200 is awesome. Good stuff.
Thank you. Thank
and
you.
your shorts have been blowing up. That's awesome, too.
Yeah, indeed. How do I let's save as copy JPEG? This ain't going nowhere, sucker. Rex 200.
Awesome.
Now I got to do a 200 stream.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And you got a big stream coming up in 3 days, dude.
I do.
I'm going to be there. It's going to be fun. Rex is going to run the show, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, gonna have a lot to talk about. Darth Theranos says unsubs. It's all right, Darth.
That's evil.
I had my 5 seconds of infamy until you unsubbed.
Stop.
But that's okay. It is it is what it is, as Teriak would say.
Shiva, am I
like,
seeing
I
you
am
next
gonna-
week?
I don't know. It depends entirely on.
Where things stand. I get you.
Yeah, because it's like this is the first panel I've been on in fuck knows how long.
Well, I can guarantee you will find it fascinating. It is not a debate panel. It's not adversarial, but it is, I would say, consequential all the same in a way that you might find very interesting because you like to dissect things, and there's a lot to dissect from this. So, yeah, so not
All right.
adversarial,
certainly-
a lot to dissect, and other panelists. But all details are under
the
wraps.
the mystery is certainly intriguing. But yeah, it entirely depends. But I mean, I should be like free in about, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes or so. So I'll pop back. Yeah.
All right.
Right.
See
Yeah.
you, Shiva.
Sorry about that, Rex.
You're all good. We're all good. I forgive you. We are all reconciled.
Oh, look at that. We're all cuddling and stuff. It's awesome.
And there's Big Bad Mama unsubbing. It's all right, Big Bad Mama. I already got the screenshot. So at one point in time, I was there, and that's good enough for me. Remember, The Amazing Atheist, at one point, after 10 years, got 1 million subscribers and has not had 1 million subscribers since.
It's 200 now,
Boys and-
though.
But you can't take that away from him.
It's 200 now, though, so you're good.
Girls, Shiva is awesome. Subscribe to his channel. Can one of the mods go and drop his link in chat so everyone can go and find him if they want to? He's a fucking good dude.
Un momento, por favore.
Hey, Big Bad Mama. Literally, the stream before this was me on the line with Matt Dillahunty and Seth Andrews, two of the internet's Mount Rushmore of atheists out there. So yeah. Hey, Tiny Pink Nugget of Chaos. How you doing? Now I can listen while I cooks. Evening, y'all. All right, we're gonna have to extend the show. We're gonna have to extend the show, but we do have more material about morality coming up. If everybody wants to extend the show, we can do that, no problem.
Like and sub to Shiva. Also, I have a couple of shout outs to do as well. We're just reaching the end of the show as well, folks.
All right,
The
cut
end of
him
his
off.
show.
Yeah, cut him off.
Okay, we'll cut him off.
Yeah, cut him off. Well, I was gonna say I was gonna go after that, but we can reflect on what happened there before
Sure.
I do.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So
Reflect away.
you were using a argument of rationality a lot to ground the reason why we think seeking truth is a good thing at all, and then having that point to the Christian God, more or less. But would you like to clarify and give a summary of what happened there?
So, debate requires moral realism to be real. The scientific method rather requires moral realism to be real, because you can't have honesty, be gone and still have a debate. When people are dishonest in debate, you say, okay, this isn't a debate. It is not a debate. That's what people say, because now somebody is just like hiding the ball. They're not authentic. They're not engaging with the facts. They're not honest. They're dodging. They're equivocating. But to say that they're dishonest is a moral claim, because saying dishonest is different than saying inaccurate or incorrect or saying untruths. Being dishonest takes knowing the truth and knowingly doing otherwise in order to gain some advantage, ostensibly with somebody or possibly with somebody. So that's a moral. So honesty is one of the moral claims that is associated with that, and then to also.
So we're pulling the Andrew Wilson. Why is that wrong? Why is it wrong to be dishonest? No, I'm saying that's funny, but yeah, that is the question. Why is it wrong to be dishonest?
Well,
Why?
It's doing a little bit more than that, because if I say what is the some people might stop at is it right or is it wrong and stop there, but I go a little bit further, I think, by saying here's what you think is right and here's the exact opposite. Let's make it as extreme as possible. What is the thing that makes you go for one and not the other?
There needs to be an arbiter.
Or a series of things.
There needs to be an arbiter.
So whatever their answer to that question is tells me what they value. And then what they value, I suspect they tend to think other people ought to value the thing that they value too. Therefore, coming to the same answer they would when pressed between a thing and its opposite. So it is fine. Like, it's been done for hundreds of years to ask what's good about this or what's bad about this, if it's relative, and people have done that. But I think making the illustration as extreme and as stark as possible is going to be the best tool for making it understandable to the most people. Because if it's extreme, then it's stark. If it's stark, it's clear. And if it's clear, then more people are going to get it than not. And so if I say, well, if I help a lady cross the road instead of trying to help a lady cross the edge of the cliff, then why is one better than the other in their mind? And then they'll say something like human well-being or harm or life or things like that. And I'll be like, why does that have any value over me? Why does that give me prescriptives in terms of how I ought to live my life in light of that? And then the answer would be something along the lines of, well, if you want to achieve some goal, it's like, okay, well then if my goal is to say good night and then, hope you know how to fly.
And then we go into human flourishing, and what does that mean in preservation of human life and assuming that that's valuable to everyone?
Well, even if it was valuable to everyone, like, why is it? How isn't everyone wrong Is it right or is it arbitrary? Is it completely like there is no right or wrong? It's just a happenstance. That's what descriptive versus prescriptive is. So if all you're saying is people tend to do a thing, you're just describing what's popular. You're not actually telling me what is correct, because now we're just saying this is how the species works. Great. This is where fish live in water. Now what? What do I do with that? Fish go blub blub, cow go moo. How does that tell me what I ought to do when facing decisions? How does that tell me if I'm going to be guilty or righteous or innocent in any sort of situation? And if you say those don't exist, then you can't tell me to demonstrate claims. You can't, for example, here's what I like to do. And I did this with Wildheart when I was on Kieran's show with him. I asked them, should creation be taught in schools? Because I know they can't stand that. And then they'll say no. And then I'll say, okay, let's say there's creationism being taught in schools, and then there's no creationism, but evolution being taught in schools. What's the tiebreaker? And then he told me that basically, I had to parse through all the deep English, but he told me that your mind ought to reflect reality, basically. And then I would ask him why. I think you saw that stream. I think that was in Moral Argument Marathon 3.
I don't think I saw that one.
Yeah, well, there's at least 4 now, and you're in the 4th one.
I'm happy to be a part of the 4th one.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I don't think Rev is going to be joining us today. I think he has like an infinite lawn, and he has taken his
push mower, right?
9-inch push mower, and a 1,000-yard lawn, and just.
And he's wearing his hat out there too. So.
Yeah. Darthurana says once one engages in a question, they have simultaneously engaged in truth seeking, even if they don't know it. But most really were simply looking for a win to try to discredit. But that's how it is when you demand, evidence. What you're saying is, tacitly, that you ought to abandon ideas that have no evidence, which is an ought. Even if you think it's the most reasonable ought in the world, the fact that you think it's reasonable means that you have used reason to make a moral map on the world to find out what your priorities are and what order they come in in order for you to live what you call a good life or best life, which was covered in Moral Argument Marathon 1, where I had a back and forth with Objective Ethics. When I said to him, okay, do you think that if everybody followed your subjective way of running your life, that they would have the most chance of having their best life, objectively speaking? And he had to say yes, even though he couldn't say that some goals were better than others exactly, even though he couldn't say that I ought to believe the truth and I ought to abandon lies. He admitted openly that he couldn't say that. So now we're kind of stuck where, and I said this to Matt Dillahunty on his show, and he took the bullet, he bit the bullet, ought we believe the truth and ought we reject lies? No.
Boom. What?
So no matter what, even if I started like falling all over, tripping all over myself and saying the dumbest things and the worst, most vile things you've ever heard in your life, and he claims, I've got the clip of what? Let me guess. The clip is going to tell you ought not follow Christianity because this guy's crazy. There's a couple of things that does. You admit that reality is prescriptive by posting the video. You admit that crazy is contrasted from sane, which is a design claim for how a human mind ought to work and how we ought to think. And you wrapped it all up in one package in the name of atheism. Therefore, I win, even though there's no winning because there's no moral map, because nothing is valuable, because nothing is true. Whatever.
Oh my goodness.
The subjectivity crusade rages on.
That's so embarrassing for them.
And he says it's embarrassing for me because I say, yes, God did ordain that those women would get raped. And he used it as a punishment for somebody else with David. And yes, those women suffered. And yes, what those men did was bad. What those men did does not become by virtue good by God ordaining it to happen. The same thing happens with Christ. And they think that they got to win. I was consistent. They were not. I could establish my worldview from top to bottom. They can't even get started without agreeing with me that reality is prescriptive. Certainty exists. Did you see the previous stream? I would actually like your take on the previous stream. I know I've pinned the link at the bottom. So I know Zillzone, he's got to go back in the Matrix.
I do. I should take this would be a good transition to take my exit. Yeah, Rex, that was an awesome exchange you shared there, and I really enjoyed your use of the argument, and looking forward to more about that. And everybody, look forward to a debate me and Rex have on the 5th. And in 3 days, Rex has an awesome stream on this channel. Be there. All right.
Coming right up.
All right. Peace out, Rex. Thanks for having me, dude. And good stuff, man. Take it easy, dude.
Take it easy. Missing mod. I think he lost weight over the years, but you know, old habits die hard. How you guys doing out there? Are you ready for more moral related content? Because I can bring out some more. I can bring out some more indeed. Let's go for Matt Dillahunty and allegedly Ian, because they had a discussion recently about moral realism, and I wanted to hit that up and see how exactly they worked that out. Of course, we got more ads, so I'll let the ads run. Certainty Exists says, I haven't seen it yet. Great to hear you talk to him. He is touted as something special by the atheist community. Yeah, he is very intelligent. He is very well spoken, but I think my argument kind of clears all the barriers of modern atheism that I have seen so far. Tiny Pink Nugget of Chaos says, more, do it. Yeah, Jay Dyer definitely lets it all hang out, for sure, for sure. So, okay, here's the next video. It is Matt Dillahunty. I changed my mind on objective morality. Now, can you spot the irony? He has no sense of irony with this. Can you spot the irony? Okay, here's the fork. If somebody says they changed their mind from an atheist perspective, the fork is this. Did you change your mind because of reason? If they say yes, then they have a moral mapping of what ought they do when presented with evidence. If they say no, it wasn't because of reason, then they have no reason to have changed their mind in the first place. I don't really know what the middle is. I mean, I guess the middle could say is, well, I changed my mind because of my emotions, but that would be no reason. But if they changed it because of reason, they made a calculation and they made an authoritative value judgment of which direction their mind ought to go for their worldview. Darth says, you should never defend anything as if it were a reprehensible act. Always ask why your actions of degeneracy are bad, but their actions of degeneracy are good.
The Atheist Debates Patreon Project presents, I changed my mind on objective morality. Hey everybody, welcome. This one's kind of important, and one I couldn't do on my own, and I couldn't wait to do. For those who have followed what I've said about morality for, I don't know, decades now, I gave a lecture ages ago called
Certainty Exists says, when he talked to Jim Bob last, he didn't even have a mind by his own admission. When did he get one? Yeah. I actually gave a super chat to Modern Day Debate in a Jim Bob debate on creationism. I don't like Jim Bob because the anti-Semitism is horrific, but I do happen to agree with him on creationism versus evolution. So I also did want to see what his reaction would be. Unfortunately, the evolutionist believes in God, and so when I asked him, I think the question was, actually, you know what? I might bring that up right now. Boys and girls. Let me do that because I kind of want to see that. Before we get to Matt Dillahunty and allegedly Ian, we're going to go Modern Day Debate on creation and evolution. And I bring up moral agency because moral agency has to do with rational moral agents, which last I checked, were living beings that they propose came about by purely naturalistic sources. LOL, I debated Ian. He is such a poser. I watched Ian because he asked the question of like, what if, oh gosh, it was a very uncomfortable question. What if God asked you to like end the life of a baby or something along those lines? Or, I think he was asking like, did God know he was going to change his mind? Which he's taking change his mind literally as opposed to figuratively. God doesn't actually change his mind in a way that a human would because it's categorically impossible. So what it would be is the tests before it. Like I think he's talking about Moses. God was testing Moses not so God could know what is in Moses, but so that Moses could know what's in himself. When God tests people, it's to see whether or not they are actually having the integrity they might think they have. Unapologetic Preacher, you are invited to come on. Unfortunately, Zillzone had to take a hike, but yeah, you and certainty exists. How does the evolutionist Christian work out death starting in the garden? By reinterpreting the Bible according to his real prior commitments. That's how you do it. I'm going to ask where the re-exam question came in. There we go. All right. Let's pop this up. Here we go. Evolution on Trial with Sam Mackey and made by Jim Bob.
The Reexamination Show sends 10. Thank you. He says, Dr. Sam, since you already believe that humans ought to live by truth and reject untruth, when did objective moral agency arise, such as to have moral laws that can be rebelled against yet still exist?
Yeah, I ascribe objective moral values and laws to God. I don't base them in anything scientific.
Okay. And then Cha XDD for...
So notice how he ascribes them to God. Jim Bob doesn't really know how to alley-oop because that's the right answer. So I understand. Special pleading, changes mind. Special pleading, of course, is the ignorance of the category error. B.S. Lewis thinks special pleading is subjectively wrong. We ought not use special pleading, don't you know? Yes, Mod. Indeed. You know what? Another thing I can do is check because Jim Bob does bring up morality later on. So I do want to bring that up. I love the ask feature they have here. Morality debate. It's definitely later on than my comment. Let's see. Mine's 156. Yeah, without a theistic framework, struggles to distinguish between biological behavior and animals, question moral distinctions. Yeah, the moral distinction right about here. We're going to bring that up.
Biological organisms, right?
So there's a lot about the question there that I disagree with. We're trying to compare the invasion of maybe bullfrogs into Australia with humans invading another country and putting that in evolution, which is a completely different descriptive framework. I don't
from
see
an
how.
evolutionary view. Nope.
But there is no such thing as an evolutionary view that's
of course
moral.
No. I mean the entailments. When I say evolutionary view, Sam, I'm saying.
Hey, Bubblegum Gun. I don't think I've seen you around much. How you been? Take a seat, I guess.
Saying evolution, if evolution was true, it would really
trying to get stuff set up.
Hold up a second. You sound like Dad knows best.
No, it's not me. It's Darth.
It's not me, it's Darth. Who am I believing here? Dad knows best or Darth?
No, I meant to say I'm not Dad knows best. I'm Darth.
Cool.
The Rio Darth.
B.S. Lewis with the real bubblegum gun as well, apparently. I think half of React's arguments depend on special pleading. The other half is words don't mean words. Which is, of course, yet another value claim.
Just matter in motion and biology doing what biology does. It would almost be deterministic. I might even venture to say that biology is just unfolding what it does, and humans are biology, and they're unfolding their behaviors. Now, without a Christian lens, I would say, if it's purely naturalistic, which I'm not asking you, because your view is that no, you do hold to a Christian lens that there is some moral stuff going on here. I'm saying no. I'm a fellow person who believes in evolution, who doesn't have your framework. They really couldn't make the distinction between an invasive category of frogs and an invasive category of humans. They really couldn't actually make the case, could they?
Well, yeah. So you've rightly said there that you're describing naturalism, not evolution.
Yeah.
And I think there's masses of difference. You just think about the leap.
I don't think that this was it, but I remember they did have some back and forth on morality that was a little more interesting than this. But we can go back to Matt Dillahunty. By the way, how you doing, Darth? You've not been on the show before, but you've definitely been in the chat. Sometimes throwing tomatoes, sometimes throwing rocks, and sometimes throwing bouquets.
So sometimes throwing the N-word too. But
yeah, well, if that happens, you're definitely out.
Well, the superiority of secular morality. And I basically talked about how there's a lot of confusion about the difference between absolute and objective, or relative and situational, and all these things, and how I'm not a moral relativist, but I don't think there are moral absolutes, and that I wasn't a moral realist. I didn't think you could get to a sort of objective foundation. And several times I toyed with ideas that I thought got me there. But I made what I thought was a pretty robust case for whether this counts as morality, whether this is the foundation that we ought to be involved with supporting. This one, which went on to just be called Well-Being after Sam Harris wrote The Moral Landscape and stuff.
Okay, the problem is when Sam Harris wrote The Moral Landscape, he entered into debate with William Lane Craig. And I'm not a William Lane Craig fan, as we know, because on August 5th, I'll be debating Zilzone on Molinism, which William Lane Craig is a proponent of. However, he got destroyed from the opening statement from William Lane Craig on The Moral Landscape, because William Lane Craig demonstrated that when you define, as Sam Harris does, that good means the flourishing of conscious creatures, then the question becomes, is Ian a robot? You know, the jury is out, B.S. Lewis. But the question becomes, what makes the well-being and flourishing of conscious creatures good? So if you take that as the meaning of good, then all it boils down to is the well-being of or the flourishing of conscious creatures is the flourishing of conscious creatures. So it's a tautology.
yeah, and the thing is that they can never actually define what is this good. It's always some sort of nebulous liberal agenda. But if you take from the perspective of biology, they're going to have to accept some things that are contradictory to the whole, the liberal ethos of, being multicultural, being accepting of the LGBT community, because the gays would be like a evolutionary dead end, so they would have to be ousted out of society for the greater good.
Yeah, I don't think you need to oust people of society, in that case. I mean, and from Christian perspective, we don't have a prescription for how a government ought to work, like in a specific granular level. And when Rev and I discussed the last 3 episodes of Rex and Rev, one of the points that was brought up was, in the Old Testament, you were stoned to death if you had homosexual sex. However, in the New Testament, it says, as far as homosexuals, such were some of you. But you can't say such were some of you if there is this continuous onus upon us to stone people to death who have committed those sins. So there's something that's a little different in the New Testament of how we interact with these things. Peter says, what is flourishing?
Exactly.
And even if you could define flourishing, could you show me why that's more valuable than the contrary?
Yeah, why ought we flourish? Because
Right.
there's no imperative as to why we ought to do that. Why not just tear ourselves apart like Conan the Barbarian?
Right. And now they have the pressure to establish their claim that we ought to do that. And if they say, well, there's no ought, then they have to relinquish their monopoly on some kind of moral superiority and be like, okay, there's no ought in either direction. Therefore, all you can, like, even if you can't convince them, you can at least neutralize them because they can't reason without moral mapping to prioritize one thing over another.
We're on similar pages there, at least with what we're talking about. This is it, and here's how you can do it, and here's everything else, and it solved every problem except for why should we care about that foundation? And my answer was, I don't care. And if you don't care about well-being, we're not talking about the same thing. And if you don't want to call it morality, that's fine. And there was a period of time where
why ought we care about well-being? Why ought we care about flourishing?
Well, that's where the train stops for him, because I think what's happening is he has a natural God-given understanding of the value of human life and the value of human well-being and flourishing and all those things.
But according to the theory of evolution, we're all technically just like thinking rocks. So it wouldn't really matter, just rocks colliding with rocks ultimately. It's just minerals, composites of minerals. The tragedy would be no different than a toaster bashing, I don't know, like a keyboard.
Well, as he so sanctimoniously preached to me that you have to have compassion and empathy and all this kind of stuff, and you'd think you were talking to a church lady, but no, you're talking to Matt Dillahunty.
Where's the empathy for the toasters?
I don't know, man. Toaster rights. Know what I'm saying?
thought I had solved the is-ought problem, which was,
I think you found the is-ought problem.
Incredibly arrogant, I suppose. But this is what happens when you dig in and think on things. And actually, I just talked with Aaron Rabinowitz the other day, who...
What's wrong with being arrogant? Unless there's an ought to not be arrogant. Like, unbelievable. You literally, as a human being, cannot operate outside of absolute moral realms. Can you imagine? Let's say allegedly Ian says, "Well, I don't think arrogance is wrong." Would Matt Dillahunty be then forced to accept that there's a possible reasonable alternative where maybe arrogance isn't wrong? I don't know.
Seems to also think he solved the is-ought problem. But I did my presentation of the solution in a live debate with John Ferrer, who immediately corrected me and pointed out that all I had done was smuggle in the ought. The imperative, I smuggled it in. I was saying you can't get from an is to an ought. You can't get from a fact to what you should do about it.
And as Stefan Molyneux once pointed out about David Hume's guillotine, is you can derive from what he said that I ought not get an ought from an is. To say that I can't get an ought from an is not a description of what's impossible. It's a description of what's not permissible. There's a difference. And that's why that fails.
I haven't heard of Stefan Molyneux in a long time. I heard he's back.
He's back, but I didn't realize how, we'll say, nativist he was. Like, he definitely hits up on the race and IQ stuff a whole lot.
I think he was one of the originals who did that, now thinking about it.
Smuggling, also known as Big Smuggling Lewis. Was he one of the... Yeah, he was one that popularized it. He had Jared Taylor on his show at least once. He's had a lot of people on his show. It's really unfortunate because there was a lot of episodes that I had liked of his, but now I cannot watch his stuff with any comfort because I've looked at his X account and it's just like, oh, dude, what have you done? Oh my gosh.
I gotta check it out.
Yeah.
But my solution was to start with two facts. Here are the facts about reality. Here is the goal that we're setting. Therefore, you can get to what you ought to do, and you can. But the problem is, I was smuggling in the ought in the goal, and John pointed that.
I'll just say it explicitly. I think it's racist to essentialize people down these. Now, he's not going to say he's essentializing them, but if you're going to say on average this and on average that, even if true, what are you trying to convey with that? What is the explanatory power you are trying to use that as an article of evidence in order to lead us to a certain conclusion of?
Well, I think that most of the arguments, when they bring that up, the argument they're trying to make is, if we want like a functioning a high stable society, then we ought to have high IQ people. So it follows it kind of follows from that. If you want that high, that functioning society, you ought want high IQ people.
Yeah, that's just goal-based ethics again, which again, it's like all you have to do is say, okay, here's your goal. Here's the contrary of your goal. Why ought I choose your goal over the contrary of your goal? And now you're back to value mapping and declaring absolutes again. By the way, B.S. Lewis has converted to Bible smuggling Lewis, and now he is a good boy. Have fun in China.
Out and corrected me, and I like learning something new. And so
I like learning something new, unless I'm scared that learning something new, and then I'll hit the mute button real fast.
My guest today, which is really rare for a Patreon video, is allegedly Ian, and he's on the line regularly, and we did some videos together. And right after we did a show, 2 weeks ago, maybe, I think it was, we were talking afterwards, and Ian was like, hey, I'd like to address something about moral realism. And I was like, oh, okay. And in the span of, I don't know, a few minutes, I think my mind was almost completely changed. So I figured what we do is get Ian in here, kind of reenact part of that, and kind of show what they were presenting, what I was thinking, and how it changed my mind. And hopefully you guys can benefit from it too, because I might now be, to some extent, with limitations that we'll probably get into, a moral realist of some variety. So Ian, thanks a ton for helping change my mind. Here you are. Let's change everybody else's mind that agreed with the old me.
Yeah. Hold up. What's going to change everybody else's mind? Do I have to say it? Darth, can you complete the thought for me? You know where I'm going with this already.
What's going to change your mind is my opinions are better than your opinions.
Which is a value claim.
Yeah.
But he would have to justify that using reason, which means his reasons would be binding to our minds in order to change it. I mean, see how universal this is? It's ubiquitous.
And they're trying to present it as if some sort of some esoteric knowledge, some sort of profound truth that Matt Dillahunty is not just being revealed by this twink.
Okay, I'm not gonna endorse that. Even if I disagree with these guys, I'm not gonna. I don't want to be demeaning. I'll be aggressive when I'm in a debate with them, but I'm not gonna be demeaning.
Well, I'm being accurate. That's what he calls himself.
He calls himself that?
I think he does. Well, he's openly.
Oh, I think he does. Okay.
Well, he's openly that. What am I supposed to call him?
You can call him allegedly Ian. How about that? He calls himself that for sure.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited. This is one of my favorite topics.
Well, I'm going to turn it over to you to basically
You listen to
give
that
the nuts and
voice
bolts.
and tell me he's not a twink.
I'm not denying that. I'm not denying what proclivities he may or may not have.
You think he's a bottom or a top? He's 100%
and we'll
a bottom.
dig in
if you
on
ask me.
origin and limitations and stuff like that. But you should set up the framework so that I don't butcher it.
Yeah. So it's a little bit elusive what ethics is when you try to give a formal definition of what would count as something qualifying as ethics. It can be a little bit opaque, but I think the correct framing is the Kantian framing, which is that ethics is aiming at something called the categorical imperative. So an imperative is just a statement that you should do this. It's saying, go do this. And there are lots of different imperatives. Some of these imperatives are hypothetical imperatives where, if you would like to achieve a specific
That is the question, BS. That is the question.
And the
goal,
answer is no.
then you should take a specific action. So maybe the goal in question is something like graduating from college. If you want to graduate from college, you ought go to your classes. If you don't go to your classes, you're not going to be able to achieve that goal. So we would say that you ought do this action because it fits into your goal. It's necessary for your goal even. So that's a hypothetical imperative, but the categorical imperative is aiming to give an ought. You ought do this without any reference to goals, a sort of ought that everybody must hold
pause there for a
to
second?
no matter.
So see, he's appealing to goals. I guess the big question would be to ask them would be should the goal of a human being should be to fulfill their purpose, and I guess from there, then they would have to be under that. If that is the goal for human beings to fulfill their purpose, have a functioning life, then it would be within the goals would include not being whatever the heck the atheists are. This mishmash of leftist values.
Yeah, well, then you'd have to admit that purpose exists, which purpose is meaningless if all you do, you can assign yourself, your own identity and purpose willy-nilly. You can assign yourself purpose A today and then purpose Z tomorrow, and then they're just as valid and just as true as the next one, and they could be totally opposite from each other. So
Yeah,
but then if they admit that purpose is objective for people, then they need an outside conscious source that's aware of their existence in order to give them a different purpose than the rocks and the dust in the air around them.
Yeah, but I think it's first asking about the question should if do you want people to live a functioning life, like a
What does it mean to
non
function as opposed to malfunction?
yeah, well, something that's for example doesn't suffer from mental disorders. And of course, you know what I'm getting at by saying this, because that would be classified as a dysfunction, and that is objectively a dysfunction. It's not me trying to be a bigot, but if that is the goal, should be the goal, then they should embrace those principles or values, whatever we want to call it.
Are you referring to eugenics, or what are you talking about?
Well, just not being trans, not cutting off your pee-pee.
Okay, yeah. So I see what you're saying. That would mean that there
I'm trying
are
to
objective
yeah.
there are objective ontologies of men and women, and that to tear off healthy flesh in order to achieve some higher end is necessarily wrong.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid the YouTube landmines. So, but
Thank you for doing that much. But yeah. So yeah.
What their goals are. So that's the project of ethics, is trying to determine whether or not there is a categorical imperative. And if there is one, then you're a moral realist. There's a thing that everybody ought to do, no matter who you are, no matter what your goals are. And if you fail to do that, you're in some ways irrational.
Okay, but you didn't say immoral. You said irrational. So in what way is rationality moral in and of itself? See, here's the thing. Even Shiva wanted to question why rationality would be moral. And I gave him an answer. It's we have responsibility with how we live our lives, and that would include the thinking. And so therefore, if you're a fully grown adult who believes in squared circles, then you objectively ought to get your act together as far as logic and reasoning. This guy on the right sucks, says the missing mod. Wonder how he's so cool now.
I'm pretty sure he does that figurative and literally.
Yeah, that's the obvious joke. That's the obvious joke, Darth. But wonder how he's so cool now. Well, because he's a TikTok atheist, so he'll go on TikTok. He will invite people to come. Usually, the least informed believers or religious people will come on his show, and then he will demolish them because they don't know how to debate and they don't know the scriptures and then all that kind of stuff. So that's just how it usually goes.
So are you satisfied with that framework?
Yeah, it sounds like what you're describing as the hypothetical imperative of if you want to graduate college, you ought to do this, is the same solution that I tried to present to Ferrer that he immediately shot down and said, "Oh no, you're smuggling that in. That's the distinction between a categorical."
Thanks for your X on the right, mod. No, I mean they're doing the video. And Darth.
Imperative and a hypothetical one. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So from there, we have kind of two things that are going on here. We have there are kind of like two ways that you could arrive at a categorical imperative. Either you can seek to establish that there's a goal that is inescapable, that every single person must conform to. And if you go back to a lot of the really early works, like all of the virtue ethicists, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, all the people in ancient Greece, they thought that there was a specific goal that is just inescapable. They called it eudaimonia, which it doesn't have a direct translation in English, but it's something like happiness is a state of being. Like you're succeeding as a human, that basically what we're all aiming at is to live a good life.
It just seems like a whole lot of circular statements going on, supposing what it has yet to prove, supposing a model it has yet to actually facilitate. Because it obviously, if God exists and his mind is the foundation of reality, he objectively knows what our purpose is, and he objectively knows that we have value because he is the only one that can imbue value to anything.
Yeah, it's the thing, they have to reject purpose, because with purpose, if there's a purpose, that already sets up the goal, and so they can no longer insert their own goals, their own objectives.
Right.
And that the content of this good life is going to be an objective criteria that everybody is aiming towards. Everybody's aiming towards their own flourishing. And then because there's this shared objective goal that everybody has, there are going to be things that are necessary to achieve it. So on that basis, everybody has a reason to do the virtuous things because virtue is required to achieve.
Virtue is good because we want virtue to have happiness, and happiness is purpose because purpose is good virtue. What are we even talking about?
But what if what makes me happy is being Jeffrey Dahmer, and it would be completely rational and logical for me to, to kidnap people and chop off their butts so I can eat it, because that's what I like.
I just have to stop because B.S. Lewis reminded me of this.
If we fall for,
I just had to do that. I don't know. Do you remember that election cycle? 2016.
Nah, I think I was still in high school, so I wasn't paying
okay.
attention.
Yeah. I'm an old man. What can I say? Gosh, now I lost it. Is it over here? Oh, man.
Team Jeffrey Dahmer now.
Team Jeffrey Dahmer. You need to team up with Team Viking with Zilzone. Sucker.
Achieve your eudaimonia, your flourishing. So that's how they attempted to establish a categorical imperative. So the first way that you might arrive at a categorical imperative is by establishing that every single person is committed to a shared goal somehow, some way. Another way that you could arrive at the categorical imperative, this is, I'm kind of in between both of these methods. I'm not sure which one's the true one, but another one is that you establish that there are certain actions that are required to achieve any goal. There's certain things that you must value in order to achieve any goal at all.
What?
He's like just stating the obvious. Like if you have goals, you need to do actions. Like no shit, Sherlock.
Well, that was the thing. It's like that's why I'm making a distinction between prescriptive and descriptive. Prescriptive has to do with objective purpose, as you had pointed out. Descriptive is just if you believe that we're living in this universe that is just a wave in space-time where the rocks in space and the chemicals therein are just fumbling around, then all you have left are descriptions. And without a prescriptive notion that is guiding these things, then the whole, if you want a rock to bump into another rock, then there must be force applied to this rock so that the rock can apply force to the next rock. What have you actually achieved? What have we learned today, ladies and gentlemen? If that's the best you can do as far as a categorical imperative, and well, if you want to eat the food, you have to put the food in your mouth. Well, yeah, how is that objectively ethical? Because you can put food in your mouth that doesn't belong to you. You can steal somebody's food and put it in your mouth, and voila, you have achieved your goal. How is that supposed to displace Christian morality or any other theistic form of morality for that matter?
I'm Jeffrey Dahmer, and I got the rumblies that only butts can satisfy.
And that there are going to be certain things that you're committed to. So an example of this, a framework that I'm really drawn to, it's put forward by a guy named Alan Gaworth. So the framework goes something like this. I'm an agent. What that means is that I have these goals and I take actions to achieve these goals. In order to achieve...
How did you arrive at your goals? Did you use reason to establish your goals? And if you used reason, what part of your reasoning process told you what to pursue and not to pursue? That would mean that there's an objective value to what you're pursuing and the methods by which you pursue it. Bia says, every atheist I know thinks people are rocks, blindly bumping into each other. Great job steel manning, guys. I know every atheist believes in the soul and persons. I get it. I know.
Any goal, it doesn't matter what it is, I'm going to need my freedom and well-being. Let's say my goal is something like, I don't know, let's take like an immoral goal to demonstrate how the system might work.
How can you have an immoral goal? This is a new one on me. Darth, fill me in. What is an immoral goal according to allegedly Ian?
I guess an immoral goal would be like an objective that goes against your opinions.
So if I'm walking down the street and I step on a rake and that rake hits me in the face, then I have committed an immorality.
I guess if the goal was to like step on the rake so it would hit your balls, but the rake ends up like hitting like your face, I guess it would be immoral because it went against your. I don't know how that even works.
It reminds me of I looked this quote up, and it's somewhat confirmed by my interactions with T-Jump. But T-Jump has been quoted, allegedly, not allegedly Ian, but allegedly TJ, has been quoted to have in a debate been asked, so if a rock prevented me from attaining my goal, would the rock be immoral? And he said yes.
No way. You know, I believe it. He's freaking.
Okay. I can do you better. There was in the video where I'm showing myself debating T-Jump on Sarah Tomato's after panel. In the case where a man, however he did it, gave a woman an unwanted pregnancy, the man would not be immoral. Nature would be immoral.
Right. You know, you just gotta blame the forces of nature. You gotta blame, you know, the shoe. You gotta understand what really had the interaction between the man and the woman wasn't the man; it was the shoe. So, technically, it was the shoe. Shoes are immoral.
Dude, that's something similar to what I said, where I was like, okay, so if I throw a rock at a person, then the rock is immoral for nailing a bullseye in the back of their head.
According to these people, yeah.
We have transitive morality, people. Unbelievable. You can launder your morality out of your actions so long as you use projectiles and other means, other mediators, other mediums. Could you imagine if I like doxed somebody and then I told the judge, no, I didn't dox them, the computer doxed them.
You know, instead of sacrificing chickens, maybe we should be sacrificing like socks.
I suppose. Brandon says T-Jump Shoe and Tails surprise birthday parties are immoral. That gets a bell. Hey Brandon, how you doing? I'm just imagining him calling the cops in his perfect world because somebody gave him a surprise birthday party.
Well, you know, that's the consequences of like making morality some sort of quantifiable value or some sort of like substance.
Yeah, a substance that exists on the exact same plane as matter. Obviously, if you have a distinction between spiritual and material, then there's a part of you that exists outside of matter that has a will that is culpable on a level that mere physics cannot be.
I'm not sure, like, if you're like a platonic, is it like some sort of platonic version of it?
No, what I'm saying is, I'm a Christian. I believe that we have a soul and we have a body. The body is material, the soul is spiritual. If you're an atheist, that is a naturalist, before that, all the non-naturalist atheists jump on me in the chat. But if you're an atheist who is a naturalist, you believe that the only plane of reality is nature itself. But nature is dictated by the laws of physics, and the laws
See,
of
'cause-
physics don't tell you what your purpose is. They can't tell you when you've done wrong. They don't have the cognition to understand when a wrong has been done or to establish what right and wrong is in the first place. It just goes back to a descriptor claim all over again.
Because I thought like Christian like immorality was just like you breaking the laws. That's basically it.
In Christ, yeah, in any way where you're defying God and what He has given you to do and to not do, yeah, that would be the immorality part of it. And anything that is not of faith is a sin. Anything, yeah. So we
so
fall
you're
short.
more-
We fall short all the time. in
So
many
you're more
ways.
like akin to like in the spirit of law rather than the word of the law.
Well, the word law is very tricky, and depending on the context. When I'm saying law, I'm saying moral law, meaning like that which is true about God's character and that which is true about our obligations, responding to that character throughout time. So,
Anyways, let's continue the video.
what about surprise 100th birthday parties? Then he dies. Well, I mean, maybe he. I don't want to go there.
Let's say my goal is to like murder people. Well, I'm going to need to say that I need the freedom and well-being to succeed in doing my goal. I need the freedom and well-being to go around to murder people. But in order to have this freedom and well-being, I'm going to need for you to not interfere with it. It's necessary.
How is this any different than Stefan Molyneux's universally preferable behavior? It sounds like the rules that would apply to me ought to apply to everyone universally, or else it's immoral.
Yeah, it's like even me as an ANCAP, I think the non-aggression principle is total bogus nonsense.
Really? Explain.
Well, first of all, because they're appealing to some sort of platonic idea. Like there's this principle that is enshrouded, like somewhere, there's this principle that's telling people do not aggress against others. But like principles can only come from like some sort of a system. So it can't be naturalistic. Because I think Stefan Molyneux is an atheist.
Yep. Yeah, well, the system, I think, would have to come from a mind in order to give significance and purpose and meaning and intent to anything anyway.
Yeah, because I mean, it says right in the Bible, like without the laws, without the system, there is no sin.
For me to achieve my goals, that you don't interfere with that, which means that I'm saying basically that I have a right to it, because if something's necessary to your goal, if you have a goal and then something necessary to achieve that, then you're committed to saying that you ought have that because you have a reason to have that. So therefore, everybody.
Because I have a reason. Well, what if I mean, is there such a thing as a stupid reason? I mean,
is committed to saying, even like the murderer is committed to saying that they have a right to the freedom and well-being to achieve their goals. So in the instance of the person who wants to murder people, they're going to say that they have a right to the.
Well, what if they don't claim to have that right and they're knowingly breaking that system? What if they're not saying that they are being wronged when they're being prevented from taking someone's life? Like, I think we're assuming a lot here.
The freedom and well-being.
Some people like to transgress known laws.
To murder people, but at this point you take a step back from the argument.
To break a few civil laws as well as some laws of the Almighty, like jaywalking. And,
wow,
edgy
boy.
Yeah,
edgy boy.
Bit
Yeah,
of a
well,
rebel.
I don't have to worry about that.
You look at your starting point, which is just that you're an agent, and then on this basis, you're saying that you have a right to the freedom and well-being to murder people. But then if your agency is sufficient for you to have this right, then every agent must also have this right in order for you to be logically consistent.
Okay, how can this guy conceive of the need for government? Because if that's true, then everybody could be a cop and everybody could be a president, right? Unless there's some limiting principle by which he structures this. Well, no, only one person can be president. Well, no, not everybody can be a cop. Well, how does that work? Because if it is afforded to people universally that whatever I get to do, you should be able to get to do, and whatever would prevent you from doing what you get to do would also prevent me from doing what I get to do, then what does he do with military? What does he do with the police force? What does he do with espionage? What does he do with the prison system? What does he do with, I mean,
Yeah, 'cause you could only have like a completely voluntary one at that point. It couldn't be what we have now.
yeah, he has to give privileges and stratification to his society. He can't just say that everything must be equal and therefore the equality satisfies everybody. Well, no, there has to be differences. There has to be ranking and priority.
If agency as a property is sufficient for you to have this right, then agency as a property must be sufficient for this right. Simplicator, basically. Which
This
means
is
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so this is I think why it was so easy to kind of win me over to this when you presented it. It's because I'd made a similar argument, but not about morality. My case was about just freedoms in general, and that when you're constructing a system of governance, you can either begin with no freedoms, and then you're only allowed to do the things we specifically permit, or you begin with unlimited freedom, and then you just restrict the things that are necessary to restrict. And between those two options, the one that begins with unlimited freedoms and then begins to restrict it is the one that is objectively more efficient to implement. It's easier to make a list of things that we shouldn't do, like, oh, can I wear this shirt? Can I wear this shirt kind of crooked? Can I wear crooked this way? Can I, there's a seemingly endless stream of things you would have to grant.
All right, call the police. He wore that shirt crooked. I don't like it.
It seems to just kind of granting themselves like a government and not actually providing an argument as to why we ought to have a government to begin with.
Right. In order to have order in a world that could be chaotic, you need an offsetting force in order to counter that. In order to, if you prize a society that you want to survive in a world where people do actual moral wrong, which we do, then first of all you have to make the judgment that things are moral wrong, so as to justify people having guns, so as to justify people using those guns to stop other people who are doing things that we have written into law are specifically the things we have chosen ought to be stopped, all of which are reliant upon value claims.
It seems to want to skip over the justification and just skip to the part where they already set up a government, and so now government is enshrined with legitimate authority, quote unquote, as to why they get to impose their values.
But hey, if I say, well, he has legitimate authority, I'm a human, I want legitimate authority too. This is immoral. What prevents them from saying that?
Well, you see, we kind of agreed upon the government. You just weren't part of the vote.
I've been cheated.
And then even if you started granting in broad categories, what you'd find is that you're basically granting a massive category for efficiency and then limiting some aspect of it. And if you start with the other alternative, which is you have no freedoms except for the ones we grant, you have to start by granting yourself the freedom to grant freedoms. Otherwise, you can't even get started on it. And so I guess the first question is this notion that,
people weren't able to drink water freely until government came along and made that a right.
You mentioned that you have to be able, you have to have your freedom to act and the well-being to act in order to engage whatever goal, whether it's the ultimate destruction of everybody else in reality or flourishing. And then you mentioned that you need to be, in order to be logically consistent, you have to extend that same freedom to everybody else. But isn't the first objection, why? What if I only want to grant me that freedom? How do we respond to that?
Yeah, I think there's like a couple of good responses there. First,
Please don't say, well, if you do that, you're illogical. Go tell the bank robber they're illogical if you're working at the bank one day, and then see how that works out in the real world. I mean, look, you have to. Part of it if you just want to take it conventionally, you would have to convince people in such a way that corresponds to their worldview. The problem is, if subjectivism is true, you can never know what's going to convince somebody else. You could never make what you would call a convincing argument. A convincing argument is relative to the motives in each individual person. So you'd have to appeal to those, but you wouldn't even know what those are. And even if you did, how would you know that you could even formulate, let's say they have a nonsense point of view. How would you even begin to formulate a logically coherent nonsense point of view so as to be persuasive to them? You wouldn't even know the depths of their nonsensibility.
That's why I always start with the question, what's going to convince you? Because I had like this debate with like T-Jump like years ago, and I asked him the question like, what's going to convince you? And his response was to that like, well, I don't know, you tell me. It's like, I can't provide your own convincing argument for you. That's
You would tell me.
nonsense.
So that's almost like saying the next thing you do is going to convince me because you can't be wrong. You might as well just say that. Okay, I will send you a $5 super chat. You're going to now relinquish your atheism and do a disavow video of atheism because I told you. Now do it. Jamie Russell, how you doing? You tell me. Unbelievable.
I'm quite convinced that if you deem that some feature about yourself is sufficient for a different feature about yourself, then in order to have that be a justified judgment, you would need to think that it's a justified judgment when applied to other people too. You know, I'm an agent, you're an agent.
What if you deem yourself superior? What if you think that you're a god? I mean, these assumptions, do they assume that everybody is reasonable? Have they spend most of their time talking about how religion has dominated the world and religion is irrational and all this kind of stuff. And then they want to come to this world that they've deemed irrational and assume rationality of everybody and then think that their arguments are going to be effective or convincing. Even just because you have a coherent argument, even doesn't necessarily mean that you have the means by which to change society, even if you yourself are convinced by it. Yeah.
Sally's an agent, Jim is an agent, we're all agents. And that's kind of the starting place of the argument, is that because I'm an agent, I have this right. But in order for that to be a valid inference, I would need to be able to abstract that to agency itself is sufficient for that right in all agents. Like agency must be sufficient to have that right in general, if it's sufficient for me to have that right. I think another response to this that I think is quite good is that, you know, let's say you wanted to deny other people as having that right, but you want to say that you have that right and like these other people will fuck them. In this circumstance, if you were to one day spawn into the body of one of these other people, like from their perspective, the argument follows that they themselves have that right. So, I mean, if you were in their position, you would deem.
So what? I mean, this is where Zilzone's Viking analogy comes in really well, because the Vikings are like, we have a social contract. The social contract is we as a group are going to get in our longboats and we're going to conquer and pillage. But this whole thing of like, well, what's fair for you should be fair for me. What's fair for me should be fair for you. Isn't that so logical? It's like, you know, give me your lunch money.
Yourself as having that right, which means that it's going to be, it's, you know, it's another like requirement of being logically consistent.
Imagine if I was in college and then I go up to the front of the classroom and I'm like taking the chalk. I'm like, look at me, I'm the teacher now. Fair is fair. I'm going to be the professor today. I'm going to grade the teacher's paper. Teacher, here's what I'm assigning you, buddy boy. You're going to get the same assignments all semester, and I'm going to give you my syllabus, and you're going to do it according to what I say. Yeah, it's halfway through, but, you know, fair is fair.
Yeah, and notice how he already just assumes rights. Like they're starting with a presupposed system already.
Yeah. I mean, they're using once you use reason in order to make a moral system by which others ought to bind themselves, you are making an objective claim about rights, like you said. They're making an objective claim about morals, purpose, all that kind of stuff. this is why I think my argument here is inescapable, or at least so far as I've seen is inescapable. I can't claim to be, whatever.
I think I'll give maybe a third response, and then I'll stop yapping. It's probably
The third response is, have you seen my Glock? That should be the third response.
going to be kind of in the same vein, but in order to, one of the requirements of logical consistency is that you need to treat like cases alike. Fundamentally, there is nothing that you're going to be able to point to that distinguishes.
Why all these prescriptions without a basis and justification?
The Glock argument is a very postmodernist argument towards the liberal.
You're exhibiting the Glock argument with your profile picture.
Yeah, I just noticed that too.
Wishes what entitles you to this right, but that it isn't true of them. Anything that you're able to point to is actually going to not be the basis. Like, let's say that you point to your strength. It's on the basis of your strength that you say that you have freedom and well-being. But if you were a lot weaker, like if one day you woke up and you were, I don't know, frail, the argument would still work. So
I wonder if these guys are socialist as well, because they have two competing fairness doctrines. Okay, check this out. If they're socialist, they have two, as far as I can say, very hard to reconcile fairness doctrines. There is the fairness of you own your stuff because everybody ought to own their stuff. And then there's a fairness of this is my income or this is my net worth. Therefore, it should be everybody else's net worth too. Right?
Yeah.
Which one wins that tiebreaker?
I'm guessing they would just chuck it up to like a democratic vote, and of course, whoever counts, whichever side is doing the vote, counting votes, is the one who's gonna win.
But then the populace could vote your rights away, and even though you wouldn't want a populace to vote your rights away, therefore there's this asymmetry of fairness. They're going to do it anyway in the name of fairness, even if you disagree. Because I don't understand.
Well, the thing, socialism isn't about economics. It's about like social justice.
Yep. Yeah, economics is just their language, but social justice is their purpose.
Clearly, that can't be the criteria for claiming a right to freedom and well-being, which means that to be logically consistent, you just have to extend this to everyone.
To be logically consistent. What if I don't want to be logically consistent?
And by Matt Dillahunty's standards, that's perfectly fine.
Especially based on today's episode of The Line.
It's kind of I just finished a video where basically someone was arguing that, if a soldier slaughtered a bunch of children, it wouldn't matter that they might have gone to heaven. That's not how we would evaluate the soldier's actions. And then they went on to make the case that, God brought you into this world, God can take you out. And the very notion that, you could have any sort of meaningful discussion about a legal system, about a moral system, about anything that you could count as a system where this system applies to everybody except for this person. And when you
literally told me today that you don't have an ought to believe what is true and reject what's false. You told me this today. And now you're making these determinations. How?
He might. He's getting old. He probably has like Alzheimer's now.
He probably has old timers now. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh.
What do they call it? Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's.
Except for this person. And when you're pointing to, I'm the agent that wants to destroy everybody, and so I agree that we need to grant this agent the freedom and well-being to do so, but screw the rest of you. I don't even know.
Not that they ever cared about being consistent.
If not for double standards, they'd have no standards at all.
To some extent, yes, you have to entertain objections like that. But it's one of those, like, if you and I are playing chess and you just say, the rules of chess don't apply to both of us, You get to just knock pieces off the board, and it's perfectly fine. We're no longer playing the same game, and so yeah, if you're talking,
What? So what? But you can opt out of chess. You can't opt out of reality.
Well, I think he's admitting it's perfectly fine to be like, you know, whatever you want to be. You can be against democracy. You can be against whatever system they're proposing. He's basically admitting that whatever system they set up has no legitimacy, and so you can just like topple it over if you want.
Yeah, why not? And then all you can do is say, well, we're not playing the same game, which is just a descriptive declaration of the state of affairs.
Yeah.
That doesn't actually condemn or justify anybody.
Yeah, and then right after that, they just cry like, "Oh, you've done something immoral. How dare you?"
Yeah.
about what agents can do, then it has to be this really needs to be another application of Rawls' veil of ignorance, and that is design the system that you're wanting to participate in, not knowing who you're going to be. That is, a critical foundation to fairness. And so even the person who would like to have only those rules applied to them, only that freedom and well-being apply to them, if they have to design that system not knowing who they're going to be, they have to apply it to all agents just to guarantee they have it. So this is very much if you want to be able to act, the minimum objective, moral, categorical imperative is a foundation built on well-being and the freedom to act. Is there anything else that you think?
If you want the ability to act, he's literally saying you cannot drink water without government first providing you a right to drink water. It's ridiculous.
Okay, let's say the government must provide you the right to drink water. When they're charting up what this order of government is going to look like, are they using reason to determine that you should have the right or that you do have the right? Because if in both cases, if you do have the right, then that puts the should on them for putting it in their charter. But if you should have the right, that's still dependent upon a value claim and a moral claim for how they ought to make government in lieu of the right that exists before the government exists. Did you catch that? Darth? Are you dead? Did you die just now? Darth? I think the machine has failed you, Darth.
Think, or that any of us could begin arguing for, that are either direct extensions of those, and therefore building on to a larger objective foundation, or is that kind of as far as we can get at the category level? Because once I have the freedom to act and the well-being to do so, my preferred goal might be the extermination of everybody in the universe, and your preferred goal might be the flourishing of everybody in the universe. And I don't know how we can describe either of those as anything more than a preference. The preferences I agree with and share, but I don't know how we get beyond that.
Yeah, I think there's like a couple of things to say about that.
Now, I can't hear you, Darth. I don't know why, but just kind of happened that way.
So I guess like maybe the starting place is I think that I think this framework lays out a good framework in terms of your obligations to other people. These are strictly what you must do with respect to other people. But one thing that I've been reading up on, and kind of like the next ethical project that I'm working on in terms of expanding my objective ethical system, is I think the virtue ethicists are onto something. I think that the way to account for your obligations to yourself are to evaluate whether or not there is some sort of flourishing human life, whether or not, in order to maximize your capacities as an individual, There's going to be specific obligations that you have towards yourself. So, for example, one of the
It just seems like a carousel running in a circle.
virtues is courage. I understand courage at this point to be something that's very like game theoretic. There are going to be specific things that you have to value just in virtue of being a person that values anything at all, in virtue of being a person that values things like freedom and well-being in all agents. And in order to take the actions that are rational, there's like a certain level of risk versus reward in all of your actions. And these need to be in line with the things that you value. And that just kind of is what courage is. It's that plus feeling the emotions that correspond.
All right, Darth, you want to try talking? Oh, Darth, what have you done? Not much of a panel. Gotta say, Darth. Gotta say. But I think at this point, I've been on the air for like 6.5 hours. Is that about true? Yeah, roughly about 6.5 hours. So I may end up just calling it a day after all. But yeah, it's been a good one. We've had a lot of. I did not count on encountering Matt Dillahunty, going on a show, experiencing the mute button. It's interesting. I guess that would make Dillahunty the ortho bro of atheism in terms of, you know, being compared to Jay Dyer with that. Darth, are you there? Dorothy, can you hear me? Where are you? Holla at me, boy. I can't hear you. And I don't know. Is anybody in the chat saying they can hear him? Is there anybody in the chat at all? Oh, sorry, Darth. But I would say any last words, but looks like you've already given your last words. So we're going to end that as is. So oh, shoot. There we go. All right, guys. We will bid you adieu as is. Have a great Sunday night. Have a great rest of your week. Start strong, end strong, and we will see you next time.